receptions, increasing full participation in community life. However, the full promise of the ADA will only be reached if we remain committed in our efforts to fully implement the ADA. And whereas on this day, we in the city of Lawrence, Kansas, celebrate the progress that has been made by reaffirming the principles of equality and inclusion and recommitting our efforts to reach full ADA compliance. Now therefore be it resolved, the city of Lawrence, Kansas does hereby proclaim July 25th, 2015 to be the City of Lawrence, Kansas celebration of the 25th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Congratulations. Be remiss if we didn't thank our friends at Independence Incorporated and Bob McKesick for all the great work they do. So Bob, on behalf of the city, please relay to your staff our gratitude for all that you do for those with disabilities in our community. Next up is a proclamation to proclaim Lawrence as a community that supports community supporting breastfeeding. Melinda.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Good evening. My name is Melinda Toomey, and I'm here tonight to represent the Breastfeeding Coalition of Douglas County. I passed out earlier the Douglas County Breastfeeding Resource Guide, and I just wanted to share that this is actually the culmination of decades and decades of work. In the 1960s, people held secret meetings about breastfeeding here in Lawrence. By the 1990s, we still wrote ladies' tickets at the pool for breastfeeding their babies. It really happened. By 2006, there was a state law, House Bill 2284, that said you could legally feed your kid in public. Great, but there was still a lot of work to do. And so the Kansas Breastfeeding Coalition for the state came up with a new program. And the city of Lawrence has now been the first city in the state to meet all the criteria to become a community that is supportive of breastfeeding. On August 1st at 10 o'clock in the morning, we're going to start a celebration at the public library. Everyone is invited to come. It's have a cookie and bring your own favorite milk. And so whatever kind of milk you're drinking at the time is totally fine. Human, cow, whatever, soy, almond, you know. And we are going to have a short ceremony at 10:30, and Jeremy has agreed to come and accept the award from the Kansas Breastfeeding Coalition on behalf of the city for becoming the first community in Lawrence to meet all these criteria. The criteria include at least 25 child care providers being trained on how to support clients that are have breastfeeding needs. At least 10 employers had to participate in the business case for breastfeeding, including the World Company and the City of Lawrence itself. The City of Lawrence had such an incredible HR policy when it came to supporting its breastfeeding employees that they are now the municipality example for the entire state. So you guys are really to be commended for the city that you run. So August 1st kicks off World Breastfeeding Week, and we're also celebrating our new designation as a city. Thank you.
Linda, thank you. Mm-hmm. Glad we're leading the way and not, falling behind. It's
we're number one.
Great to hear that we're first. It's awesome. And to you and all the work that you've done, thank you. We're really proclaiming this on behalf of the folks that have done so much good work.
If you care about health, then you support breastfeeding, even if you don't do it. So
yeah, thank you. Whereas the people of Lawrence, Kansas are deserving of good health, and whereas human milk is the preferred and most appropriate source of nutrition for infants, adapting over time to meet the changing needs of the growing child, and whereas breastfeeding is a proven primary prevention strategy protecting both infants and mothers from a host of chronic and acute diseases and condition and building a foundation for lifelong health and wellness, and whereas the act of breastfeeding builds a strong emotional connection between the mother and the infant, a bond which lasts a lifetime, and whereas breastfeeding provides a safe, reliable, and renewable food source, and whereas employers that provide workplace location support experience an impressive return on investment, including lower health care costs, absenteeism, and turnover rates, and improved morale, job satisfaction, and productivity. And whereas breastfeeding is economical, providing its benefits at little or no cost, and providing a safe food source, especially critical during emergency situations. And whereas Lawrence has built a culture of breastfeeding support through the years, and has now met all criteria established by the Kansas Breastfeeding Coalition to be recognized as a community supporting breastfeeding. Now therefore be it resolved, the City of Lawrence, Kansas does hereby proclaim Lawrence as a community supporting breastfeeding as designated by the Kansas Breastfeeding Coalition, and encourage all citizens to support breastfeeding families wherever and whenever possible. Congratulations. Okay. Can we have our Parks and Rec friends participating on the first? All right. Very good. Thank you, Melinda. All right. Next up is the consent agenda, and all matters listed on the consent agenda are considered under one motion and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion on those items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. Is there an item on the consent agenda that a member of the commission would like removed for separate consideration? Is there an item on the consent agenda that a member of the public would like to have removed for separate consideration?
Mayor Farmer, Joshua Montgomery from Wicked Broadband. I wanted to pull item number 9.
9? Okay.
7.
7? Okay. Any other items? All right, then I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda minus items 7 and 9, and adding claims to 190 vendors in the amount of $3,949,294.58.
So moved. Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve the consent agenda minus items 7 and 9, and paying claims by Commissioner Boley, second by Commissioner Amix. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Item number 7. Item number 7.
Thank you, Mayor Farmer. On item number 7, I did send a memo on the late side today. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it or not. Switch to my reading glasses. On item number 7, it said staff memo and attachments. The memo was extremely short, and the attachment was like a PDF that was like oversized and said page 1 of 2, and I could never pull up a page 2. There were no photographs and so forth, so I had to sort of make do with what I had there, and there haven't been minutes, written minutes, transcribed minutes posted for a couple months, so I don't know what might have happened in the near path. So I'll just read what I wrote about this. Baldwin Creek Trail Alignment, pedestrian easements. I ask that item 7 be removed from the consent agenda and that the changes requested to the existing Baldwin Creek Trail be denied. That is, that staff be instructed not to initiate the vacation process of the existing pedestrian and green space easement on 2 tracts and not work with the property owners to establish new easements. In attempting to study the memo and map submitted, little detail is provided, and the map is very difficult to study due to its large format and multiple lines showing the areas of floodplain and landowners, but I spent considerable time doing so. It also showed, I had told you that part. The easements were acquired in 2008, acquired by the city. It appears that Parks and Rec has met with and spent money for, that's a guess, CFS engineers to show possible routes. One appears to be an existing easement and road. And I don't know if people are actually, it's the existing one, but I don't know if people are actually using it or just it's been designated or what. 2 property owners, Compton Farms LLC and Rebecca J. Finney, are said to be interested in maintaining some large grass fields which are in the easement, and so they want to change the existing easement and trail route. I presume that this trail is or will be open to the public, so it is important to give the public the greatest benefit, not the landowners who have already had the easement in place since 2008, unless there is some great advantage to be gained by the public by its relocation. The memo states, quote, "To date, all concerned feel that the proposed trail might be better situated on property slightly outside of the existing easements, ... I'm saying, who are these all when we say all concerned, and why do they say might be better situated? To try to clarify, the existing pedestrian easement is shown as a solid line on the map. I don't know if do you want me to click on this and make that map come up?
Yeah.
That would be terrific. It only showed come up to fit on my laptop, 39%, and it's on number 7. It's okay. So thank you. Was there a second page? Because it says page 1 of 2. And I never, just one. Thank you. So this heavy solid line would be the existing trail, and the dark dotted line would be what they're asking for. Other things would be property lines and the floodplain, which is the floodway and the flood fringe. Okay. One notation on the map shows that the pond and dam would need to be regraded as needed if the changes are made. This could also have bad consequences for the ecology and for animals in the region. It would probably be expensive too. It would have been nice to have pictures included or a more clear delineation of the tree line. That is, they were proposing to put the new one closer to the tree line. Some pedestrians do like to walk through fields. Due to the added expense and the lack of public input and the lack of a clear demonstration of the public good in these changes, and due to here's my typo, I don't know what I left out, and the changes requested by 2 landowners who have already benefited from the public improvements for years, I request that these changes be denied. And I could probably show you this more if it's, I don't know if this is helpful to you at all. Whoops, that's the wrong thing to click. This is what I want to click.
Thank you for your comment.
Okay, well,
Thanks.
you could see that all right?
Other public comment on this item? Do we have any questions for Mark on this issue?
I guess my understanding is the proposed trail was changed to avoid crossing 5 times, right?
That's exactly correct. We're trying to reduce it down to 1 crossing, so there's a cost
So
savings.
there would be a big public benefit there in cost savings, right?
Potentially, yes, and also the property owners, instead of going right through the middle of the fields, they'd like to see it on the edge of the woods, and so would we. So when I said all concerned, that's staff and the engineers and the property owners. So I think we're all in the same boat. We just are asking your permission to continue this conversation with them.
Any other commission discussion? Other public comment on this item?
Just one question. Mark, all we're being asked to do is to initiate the process, and anybody will have time to speak to any of these things.
Yeah, we'll have to come back to the commission. We'll work with legal staff and the engineering team that we've hired to come up with an alignment and then bring that back to the commission for approval. If there's any money, obviously, for easement purchase, which we're hoping to do a land swap where we could take one and they give one. So.
Sounds good. Any other public comment? Okay, Mark, thank you. Commission discussion?
the simple deal of initiating the vacation process, and hearing everything that has to go into it, and I agree with what Marcus said, is that we can save money of not crossing 5 times. I mean, it makes all the sense in the world. We're able to swap the land, without money out of pocket. I think, it works all the way around.
So entertain a motion to authorize staff to initiate the vacation process of the existing pedestrian and green space easement on 2 tracks and work with property owners to establish new easements that better facilitate the installation of Baldwin Creek Trail.
So moved.
Motion made and seconded, all by Commissioner Boley, second by Commissioner Amix. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Next item on the agenda that was pulled is to authorize the interim city manager to execute the proposed fiber memorandum of understanding, MOU Addendum 1, and the dark fiber lease agreement with RG Fiber. Josh?
Mr. Mayor, I'm Joshua Montgomery with Wicked Broadband. We've exchanged a couple notes the last time you guys had a fiber lease agreement, and we've asked next time I can be here, I've got a brief break in service before I go back. So I thought I'd just come up and highlight a couple points. I fully expect this to pass today, so I just wanted to put a couple things on the record so that we can have this discussion again in a year when the city's still in the same position with fiber a year from now as you are today. This lease agreement adds another 12-count fiber to being leased to private entities. The lease agreement that you guys signed a couple weeks ago with Kansas Fiber Network was with a company that made no bones about it. They were 100% clear that they have no plans to build a fiber network in Lawrence that connects individual neighborhoods. Their only goal was to serve customers, high net worth customers, what we call low-hanging fruit, who are willing to pay thousands of dollars a month for internet connectivity. They're not interested in apartment complexes. They're not interested in single-family homes. They're not interested in small businesses. Their only interest is in large companies and large organizations that are willing to pay thousands of dollars a month. When that agreement was signed, that was 25% of the capacity that you had available for private entities. Today, you're signing another lease agreement where you're giving away another 25% of the 48 count that's available in a lot of the conduits that are being leased. That means that half of the city's fiber capacity is now going to companies that, once again, have no concrete, realistic plans to build fiber capacity into neighborhoods, build fiber capacity into apartment complexes, to build it for folks, normal folks, and not just for high net worth individuals and for the large customers. The agreement you're about to sign has no build-out commitment. So you're leasing an asset that's somewhere between $7 and $14 million. You're leasing it for $16,000 a year, and there's no commitment on the part of the other party to ever build anything other than to put some of that fiber capacity into use within the community. And also, there's no franchise fees associated with this. So between this and the Memorandum of Understanding, you're giving an entity the ability to take a backhoe and dig up the right-of-way pretty much anywhere within the city of Lawrence to hook up customers without compensating the public for use of the right-of-way, the way that Westar does through a franchise fee, the way that the cable providers do through a franchise fee, the way we do through our agreement to provide a 5% municipal fee. I see that although the agreement explicitly bans the provider from providing a traditional cable television service or a voice service, that in the newspaper it was mentioned that there are plans to put both a cable and a voice service on this system. My guess is that the legal mechanism to make that happen will be to provide those services OTT, which means over the top. The way that that's traditionally done is you set up a couple of additional companies, one specializing in voice over IP and one specializing in television over IP. My guess is in this case that'll probably be Dish. Those companies pay nothing in terms of franchise fees to transit the network, and now you've got another provider in the community that is providing television, voice, and data services, but unlike the cable provider and unlike AT&T, those providers are paying zero in franchise fees. So not only do you not get the incremental revenue that's being generated through use of the right-of-way, but as whatever organization it is starts cutting into market share for the other players, you actually see your franchise fees go down. So this agreement, assuming that the company is successful, and that's a stretch, but this agreement puts in place the first domino in a domino effect that will eventually result in fewer franchise fees and ultimately higher taxes for the end users of city services who have to make those revenues up somehow. The incentive with these agreements is to cherry pick the richest customers, the customers on these business corridors. So, the heiress of the world out at 15th and Wakarusa who do have a couple $1,000s a month to pay for internet will have additional options, but in terms of the small businesses that call me every day looking for service, there will be no additional options. They'll continue to have the one broadband option in the community, which is the cable provider. The DSL is no longer considered broadband by the FCC. Finally, Lawrence continues to be behind Kansas City. We're now behind Chanute. We're now behind Emporia, but we are ahead of Baldwin. We do have a provider in town that's actually providing gigabit service, and that's Oz. Provided Wicked Broadband is still operating in Lawrence next year, the whole reason for me coming to say this is a year from now I'll come back and highlight what I just said, and when we're in the same place, maybe we can have a discussion in that time about how we can expand fiber service within the community. So that's all I have, unless you guys have any questions.
Any questions for John? Gosh, thank you. Other public comment on this item?
It's Patricia Sinclair again. I confess to not being able to follow all of the cable internet, things that have happened throughout the city, the suggestions and back and forth, but I did see this item and I have heard about Wicked Broadband over the time. I think that what's happening my understanding is that in newer neighborhoods, things are being put underground, whatever those things are. Even in my neighborhood, like my sidewalk side, I have a telephone pole in my backyard, which I find people in my yard standing in my flower bed from time to time. They don't have any right to be there, like people from what used to be Sunflower and so forth. They don't have any right to be. But I have DSL. They tell me it's out of, what did you just say? It's not, but they can't supply me with the other. The big office will say they can, but it isn't really available. And my neighbor who lives on the corner at Leonard, they did arrange it for her, AT&T, but they said they couldn't say if they could do it until they actually tried. And apparently there's something buried along the side of the road. Leonard doesn't have sidewalks. We don't have storm sewers in our neighborhood. So there's sort of a ditch, So I guess what I'm saying is I followed in Kansas City when Google came to town, and it was a big deal and people signed up for it and so forth in neighborhoods. And when it came, it was said that it turned out that even if you lived in a neighborhood and you said you want to Google, if you didn't have a certain percentage of the neighborhood, whatever geographical area was defined, you didn't get Google. So Google wasn't given to all of Kansas City. It's just the people with the highest percentage. So I'm just speaking on behalf of maybe older neighborhoods, trying to say that, I would like to have better service and even pay less, not use it, what they consider an obsolete thing, but continue to bill me for every month, the DSL. And that we consider this any move, in some place, things can be fly by night, but I'm just hoping that whatever is done will encompass the entire city and give us all a chance to have, a buried cable or whatever is necessary to access this service. And I don't know how this dark fiber is. I looked at it. It seemed like it was sort of businesses or public offices and so forth, but then once they lay the fiber, are they going to dig up and lay another fiber next to it? I don't know. Maybe you could help me understand this. And a plea for our older neighborhoods to get some of the city services we deserve and get billed for stormwater.
Thank you, Ms. Sinclair.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
My name is Frank Jansen. I've been using Wicked Broadband for about 3 years now. I've had very good service. They actually came out to my house and improved the problem I had. Just want to take a very short poll. How many people here in the audience use Wicked Broadband? Raise your hands. Only a few. Anyway, thanks.
Okay. Other public comment? Mike, before you start, could you address Ms. Sinclair's comments about burying one fiber and then burying another one and kind of how that works really quickly?
Absolutely, Mayor. In order for fiber optic cables, for us to be able to provide the service level we're talking about, we're installing a whole new technology. That requires new cables to be put in the ground to every home and business that we end up connecting and servicing. We're going to have to install new cables for every home and business that we're servicing. Absolutely. Right. Absolutely, it's a qualifier. Absolutely, and I'll explain that qualifier. Not a problem. Are there any other questions that you have for us, and I can explain the qualifier and how that works with us?
Or you guys can just chat when it's finished.
That'd be great, not a problem. So I just want to mostly clear up some gross misrepresentations of our company and our plans and what the agreement is before you to decide upon. This agreement actually gives us permission in the right-of-ways contained only to those routes defined in the agreement. It does not give us right-of-way permission all across town to just go dig up and bury whatever we want. In terms of cable TV service, we absolutely will be offering TV service. We also have in the existing agreement that we cannot provide TV service without first coming back to the Commission and getting a TV franchise in accordance with federal law. And we agreed to that. So I fully anticipate as we get closer to Q1 of next year to come back and say we'd like a television franchise to be able to offer this service as per federal law. And we'll start paying franchise fees to the city as per federal law based on those TV. Pretty straightforward. But is there a point in us crossing that bridge now? No. So we just want to go ahead and get this lease agreement that we talked about for a little over a year and a half put to rest so that we can continue to move forward. We made a couple adaptations, and you see the notes in your agenda. The adaptations were really driven around our desire to light 10 gigs. 10 gigs will be flowing with the approval tonight. Will be flowing within 2 to 3 weeks through parts of Lawrence. And with this fiber lease agreement, we'll be able to light up those corridors with 10 gigs of fiber as well. And so I fully anticipate to tell you the first quarter, but we'll work our tails off to beat that expectation. But I'm excited about being able to come back to you for that TV franchise, and I'm excited to come back to you and prove that we do what we say we're going to do. Any questions?
Questions for Mike?
Yeah, I have a question. This is just a technical question.
Yes, ma'am.
You're installing side-by-side conduit, and one of those is for the city. Is that just empty pipe, basically?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And that allows the city to install whatever fiber at any future point. The major cost of that is, since we're boring, we're not doing any kind of open trench construction. It's about $20 a foot. So that stretch of, I believe it's 14,000 feet, we're carrying that labor cost because we plan on building that ourselves, and we just agreed that if the city will buy conduit, which is usually around 40 cents a foot, we'll pay for the construction, we'll pay for the labor to install it. So it's a pretty sweet deal for the city.
I don't know that he is, but Brandon McGuire has worked on this agreement. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, I've got a question.
Need to be able to.
So the fact that with two agreements we're at 50% of our total capacity for fiber is kind of concerning to me. Can you address that?
Yeah, let's say that's not entirely the case. I'm gonna try to find. I wish I had this quicker access to this. So if you'll bear with me for just a minute, I'll draw the fiber map. Well, while I'm looking for this, just do you have them? That was your map. Okay, well, I'll just use that to show you. I apologize. I'll be happy to provide you the map. We reference a map. We adopt by reference a map in our fiber policy. That's the resolution 7097, and that map shows the dark fibers that are available for lease. That's not fibers that the city needs to use for city functions. Those are dark fibers that we've identified that are excess, that are leasable. There's one route that comes in across the bridge north of the city into town, and there's 48 fibers along that route. Yep. There's 48 fibers along that route. There's also one other route, or once that gets here on this side of the river, that turns into 96 fibers. There's one other route along 23rd Street that has 48 fibers. But just on the other side of 23rd Street from that route is a run that has 96 fibers. And again, those are dark fibers that we've identified as available for lease. So I would say, yeah, thank you, Diane. So this shows that map, and it's this run right here that does have 48 fibers. And you'll see the rest of the runs are 96 fibers. This one here on the south side of 23rd Street is 48. But you see the red line on the north side of 23rd Street, and that's an additional 96. And so again, these are our dark fibers, not the fibers we set aside for city use and for future city needs. And then also, if we get to a point in the future where we do have such a high demand that we're looking at leasing all of the fibers, then there are options. And I'm not the appropriate person to speak to the technical aspects of it, but there are options for multiplexing, which would allow us to exponentially increase the capacity of those fibers.
So what percentage would you say of our fibers is taken up then with this MOU?
The dark fibers?
Correct.
Well, with this particular one, it would be 12. So one buffer tube. Thank you. Sorry, one buffer tube. And then with the previous KFN, Kansas Fiber Network agreement that you adopted a couple weeks ago, that was an additional 12 fibers.
Okay.
And I know the KFN, part of their plan, part of their business model is to serve as a backbone, or sort of a common carriage system. So other ISPs, internet service providers, can utilize their network, come to an agreement with KFN, utilize their network to get to residential neighborhoods and build out. And they did share with me that they're interested in residential neighborhoods, but of course, it is a market-driven business.
So you would say that the statement that 50% of our fiber is now taken up is inaccurate?
I would say for this particular run north of the river, 50% of those fibers, if this agreement is adopted this evening, would be leased, which the intent, part of the intent of the fiber policy was to lease fibers. So that 50% would be leased. We'd still have an additional 24 of those fibers available for lease. And then if it gets to a point where we would need to address that issue of multiplexing, then we could do that. And that's so fiber runs light, and basically that splits the light. Mike or Josh would be much better at talking about that than I would.
Okay. So. Can I ask one more question? So, Mike, can I address this to you? So, would it be better for us now to look at multiplexing rather than having to come back and do it later? I mean, is it more cost effective to look at that now rather than later? What are your thoughts on that?
I don't think it is, honestly. Optelian has some multiplexing, and just so everyone knows what we're talking about is in each strand of fiber we send light down it. Multiplexing allows us to send multiple light signals down that same strand of fiber. So even though you may have in one segment, as we're talking about 24 strands of fiber, you can send up to 88 channels for a nominal fee of about $6,000. So you can drastically increase them. I wouldn't recommend that the city pursue that because I'm seeing the prices of a lot of that drop very rapidly, and I anticipate, honestly, if you need additional fibers, two things will end up happening over time. The cost of that equipment will drop as we get into more dense wave division multiplexing, and I also anticipate as we build out more into the community, our long-term play is to build our own fiber network. We're using this to accelerate connectivity to homes and businesses as fast as we possibly can. So there will be a point where RG Fiber starts going back to the city and saying, here are your fibers back if you need them.
Mayor, I did also just want to mention that these fibers that appear on this map are just the fibers that we were discussing making available for lease. So there's additional ones that the city has reserved for its purposes and other purposes.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Any other public comment on this item? Okay. Back to the commission.
I just want to thank Mike and RG Fiber on behalf of the city for helping to hopefully make our fiber policy a success. You know, our fiber policy is meaningless if we don't have companies actually making use of it. So I appreciate you making use of it, and I look forward to you getting high-speed fiber to us as quickly as possible.
It was the goal of setting up the policy, to make sure that it was available for companies. Appreciate everybody staying with us while we went through that process. You know, it was pretty tough for, businesses and citizens alike, but it's an important matter that we took up, and I feel good about the policy. So,
other comments? Okay. So I'd entertain a motion to authorize interim city manager to execute the proposed fiber MOU, addendum number 1, and the dark fiber lease agreement with RG Fiber.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded by Commissioners Herbert and Amix. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. City Manager's report.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. The first item here is a link to the Moody's bond rating report related to the issuance that we had last week that you all had requested. And then the other item that you see there are our social media and website reports for the month of June. So again, as these were on your this report not all that long ago, you continue to see a lot of efforts that that Megan Gilliland and her staff are working on to get the messages and information out to people about things happening in the city. So I thank them for all their work.
Questions for Diane? And thank you, Megan. Great job. Really impressive stuff. And Brian, great job on the Moody's credit rating. Thanks for getting that on the agenda this week. All right, next is public comment of a general nature. If you have comments specific to nothing on the agenda tonight, we'd invite you forward for public comment at this time. Please note that there's quite a few people here who want to speak to some issues tonight, so try to keep your comments brief, and we'd certainly appreciate it. All right, we'll move on to the regular agenda. The first item on the agenda is to conduct a public hearing regarding a distance limitation waiver request for the 2015 Kansas State Fiddling and Picking Championship event to be held in South Park on Sunday, August 23rd, and to consider adopting on first reading ordinance number 9121, allowing the sale, possession, and consumption of alcohol on that day between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. in South Park and on Mass Street between North Park and South Park Street associated with the event, and to consider approving a street event permit and closure of Mass Street between North Park and South Park on that day from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. for the Kansas State Fiddling and Picking Championship event. That is a mouthful. Hi, Chuck.
It's that time again. Kansas State Fiddling and Picking Championship, August 23rd, Sunday. The request is to close Mass Street between North Park Street and South Park Street between 8 and 9 p.m. They've also requested to be able to sell and consume and possess alcohol within the right-of-way. So that will need the Commission's approval of Ordinance 9121, which would allow that. There are some churches in the area within 400 feet. They have been notified, so we'll have to have a public hearing. So your action tonight would then be to open the public hearing, pending comment and Commission discussion, approve the ordinance, conduct the public hearing, find that the proximity and temporary sale of alcohol for the event is not adverse to the public welfare or safety, and grant the distance limitation waiver, and then approve the street event permit.
Okay. Any question for Chuck?
Mayor,
Yes, sir.
Chuck, the applicant I spoke with before the meeting, and they had said that they had made a request for Saturday also in the evening. The original application.
I have not met the applicant. I'm
No.
filling in tonight.
Jim Jeans.
Nice to meet you.
Yes, when we originally placed the request with the Parks Department to get their approval, we indicated that on Saturday night, before the event, we're going to have we rented the South Park. We don't need the street closed, but we're going to have concerts, and we're hoping to have Free State serve beer at that event. So the Parks Department signed that approval. When I came over to do this request to close the streets, I indicated on that application that we were going to be serving alcohol on Saturday night as well. Somehow that didn't, since it wasn't tied in directly with the street closure on Sunday, I suppose it wasn't tied in.
The parks have a special exemption that they can issue because it's not public right of way, but it's in the park, so they can do that so long as you keep the alcohol in the park, not on the public right of way. So
no sidewalk, right?
I think we're okay.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Tim, can you get hooked up with Chuck or somebody to make sure that we can be accommodating to what you need on that day? Perfect. Thank you. Entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
Move.
Second. Motion made, seconded. Commissioners Amix and Herbert, all in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Public hearing is now open. Entertain a motion to close public hearing.
So moved.
Motion made and seconded. Commissioners Amix and Herbert, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We'll bring it back to the commission.
This is really a good event for our community, and one that I know a lot of people look forward to, so I'm happy to support it.
Okay. Any other comments?
Yeah.
All right. So, all in one motion?
That'd be fine.
Okay. Entertain a motion to adopt on first reading ordinance number 9121, allowing the sale, possession, consumption of alcohol on Sunday, August 23rd from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. in South Park and on Mass Street between North Park and South Park Street, and to approve a street event permit and closure of Mass Street between North Park and South Park Street from 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. on that day for the Kansas State Fiddling and Picking Championship event.
So moved.
Motion made and seconded to approve those two items by Commissioner Boley, seconded by Vice Mayor Soden. All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Good luck to you, and hopefully we'll have a great event and good weather on that day. 85 degrees and sunny. Done. All right, next item on... Yeah, there you go. Next item on the agenda is to consider the following items related to transit, to receive a transit center location analysis update and provide direction to staff regarding proceeding with the location on the northeast corner of 21st and Iowa Street for the site of the Transit Transfer Center, and to consider approval of amenities, guidelines, and policy. Good evening, Bob.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I am going to, there it is. I'm going to attempt to bring you up to speed on the last 2.5 years of effort that we've had involving the Transit Center. About 2 years ago, we hired a contractor, Olson Associates. Tom Worker-Braddock is here from Olson Associates to do some work for us to locate a transit center that would be good for our community. As I say, we started that about 2 years ago. What I'm showing here in these first pictures is kind of what other communities in our general area are doing with the transit center. Wichita has one, as does Topeka and Columbia and Johnson County. They all have some form of a transit center that they base their operations and their service through. That typically happens when you have smaller cities. For somebody to get from one place in the city to another location in the city, most probably you're going to have to transfer for longer trips. So you really don't have direct access like we do in a car to be able to get in a car and go from our garage right to the front door where we're going to. You pretty much have to transfer to do that. The next is what we've been facing in the downtown, and this is the reason why we started looking for a transit center for our community. In the lower left hand is the conditions we were operating in at 9th and New Hampshire. We were booted out of our location at 9th and Mass due to the 901 building at New Hampshire. So we moved over into this empty lot. The lower right is at 9th and Mass, which is where we came from before we went to New Hampshire. It's where we were from the very start of our service back in 2000. The upper right is where we're at now, at 7th and Vermont. And one of the things I want to draw your attention to, and I know that picture is a little bit small, is there is about 4 more buses on the other side of that truck you see in the middle of that driveway there. That's one of the conditions we have at our current location, is we do have people coming and going right in the middle of our bus operations, right through the middle of our passengers as they're getting on and off the bus. The other issue we have with that location is we have a lot of people crossing to go to the library and back and forth to the library and to the senior center between our buses through traffic, which is another pretty dangerous situation for it. In the left-hand corner there, you see all these rider alerts. That's what we've been faced with for a long time in our downtown, is we have a lot of street closures, a lot of different events that go on in downtown. We want those events to go on in our downtown. They bring a lot of activity to our downtown, but every time that happens, we usually have to move our location to someplace else. What that typically does to our passengers is they may ride the bus in the morning. If they don't read the rider alerts and stuff on the buses or posted at the bus stop, they'll go back to catch the bus where they think it's going to be, and it's going to be on the other side of town. The last event was we moved from 7th and Vermont over to the Borders location on New Hampshire, which is several blocks away, so nobody knew that we were even over there. If they didn't read the rider alerts, they didn't know we were there. So it's a constant issue that we've had, and especially as we've started to increase the number of events and stuff we've had in the downtown and the number of street closures as a result. Over the last 2.5 years, we've done 3 different things. We've done a locational analysis. On the heels of that, we did a traffic impact study, and then we did a neighborhood engagement with one of the areas that we were looking at, which is down around 21st and Stewart. The location analysis was done by Olson Associates, as I said. The location analysis, what we did with the location analysis was we had certain criteria that we were using to find a location. Now, this is a pretty long list because this is all the stuff that we looked at. We looked at the urban growth patterns, where we are going in the future, where our community is going. It's going to the south or to the southwest for the most part. We continue to grow in that direction, as we can see from all the new builds and stuff that are going on. Trip destinations, we looked at all the employment assistance agencies that are out there helping people to go to work, the social service agencies, the schools, all of those trip destinations, including employment, which is lower down on the list there. The street network, we wanted to look at the street network and how it was laid out in our city, so we found out kind of the center of our street network. We also, in looking at the street network, in order to have a transit center, we had to be about 330 feet away from a collector or higher classification of roadways. So we're operating big buses for the most part. We want to have an opportunity to operate those big buses and not on neighborhood streets and smaller streets. We also wanted to look at pedestrian movement. Although we do every day, at least with the service across Jayhawk Boulevard, we operate through a lot of pedestrians up there. We operate at about 5 miles an hour at best going through campus, so it's very slow. We have a lot of people that we have to keep our eye out when we're operating there. The transit service, we looked at all our ridership patterns and where people are coming from and going to in our system. We also looked at how all our routes were aligned with those trips and with our road network. As I say, we looked at employment. Wouldn't be surprised that employment, for the most part, is kind of in the center of town, and that's what we really found when we started looking at all these, which I'll show you in a map here in a minute, is that everything kind of gravitated toward a central location in our community. We looked at income, all the block groups and stuff for the low and moderate income in our community. We took that into consideration. We looked at the density by block groups of our population. We had in our site, we had to have 1.5 acres or so to get the number of buses that we have if we got them off the street to operate. We also wanted to make sure we had limited grading, so we didn't have to do a whole lot of excavation and moving of dirt in order to get something in place. We wanted to be compatible as far as land use, especially for future development. We wanted to have some opportunities for synergy with whatever we're doing with future development also. Of course, we had to look at safety and how this transit center would operate, similar to being, say, if we would have located it as part of the library complex and we would have had our buses operating on Kentucky and we would have had kids going to the pool. We would have library traffic, and that is really an unsafe situation for us, especially when you start getting younger children involved in it. And then we looked at our operational efficiencies, too, about how we could operate, and we've talked about that a little bit before in the past, that if you have a transit center that's more centrally located, it shortens that distance for one side of the trip. So where we're located now, it'll take a half hour for us to get to our downtown, to, say, the southwest portion of town. If it was more centrally located, maybe it'd take 15 minutes, and take 15 minutes to get to back downtown. So it kind of levels out that running time between the routes and makes us a lot more efficient and a lot more convenient for people to use. In doing this, we went through a mean center analysis. So if you look to the right there, I know this is small, but most of those things I listed early on are what you see, these triangles on the map. And if you really focus hard and can see those, they're all focused right around KU's campus. KU is the center of our urban area for sure. It is the center for most of our jobs. It drives most of our trips in our community also. So it really did drive us toward that is where the center of all of those important factors that we looked at are located. So we took all of those mean centers and we drew a circle around those, and this is that green line kind of in the middle. That is Iowa there. So the brown to the lower left, those 3 blocks there are West Campus, and then up toward the upper right that's Jayhawk Boulevard. So that shows you where the mean centers of our community was, at least looking at that select group of criteria that we used. So then we went into that location, that center portion of our community, and we looked at sites. I think initially we came up with 49 sites that we looked at. We narrowed those down using that same criteria and looking at, especially with arterials, and looking at the level of roadway so we could get our buses in and out. And we came up with seven locations that we looked at in more detail. Those 7 locations were at 19th and Iowa, at the northeast corner of Crestline and Bob Billings, 101st Fambro, which is at it's the throwing pits at Memorial Stadium, southeast corner of Crestline and Bob Billings, 2029 Becker, which is the KU's Park and Ride facility, 925 Iowa, which is behind the Mercantile, and then 2021 Stewart. Over time, here's what's happened to these locations. 19th and Iowa we thought that was a good location, but that location under the master plan and what KU wants to do with the property is going to be kind of an entranceway or whatever into the West Campus area. So it's going to be more of a marquee kind of approach. They didn't want to use that land for that. The northeast corner of Crestline and Bob Billings is privately owned, pretty expensive, which is what we understand, and it is constrained for east and west movement. If you look at it, for us to get anywhere east of Iowa, we have to go through campus, which really starts constraining how we provide service on the east side if that's indeed where our transit center would be. So it was eliminated. Fambro, it's not consistent with the master plan. I put that on there. The reality of it is that is controlled by KU Athletics, and KU Athletics really has another idea for what they want to do with that piece of property. I don't think it's so much, I'm not speaking out of turn anyway. Donna Holting is here from KU Parking and Transit also. The southeast corner of Crestline and Bob Billings, there are some grading issues there. That's right across the street from KU's police facility, public safety facility. It also is constrained because it's right across the street from the other site on the northeast corner. It also presents problems to getting anywhere east of campus without having to go through the campus traffic and congestion. 2029 Becker, this is the Park and Ride facility. It was really designed for something like this in mind originally, but KU's master plan is looking to make a transition with the Park and Ride facility to something a little bit different. And I'll go on and try to explain it. Donna, you can correct me if I'm wrong on any of this. Their plan is to use that Park and Ride facility and that area in West Campus to be more of a public-private kind of partnership area. So right now there's a lot of research, there's a lot of graduate activities that's going on in West Campus. They would like to see the private sector come in and do some kind of dual partnership, as the city is doing there already, to do more of that in the general area of the park and ride facility. Right now, the westernmost portion of the park and ride facility is being used as a parking lot for the facilities that are already there. It's not really being used for park and ride at this point. So they are looking to take offline a lot of those parking places. Did I hear a third of it's coming off? A quarter, a third? In due time, probably in the nearer future, over time, that whole facility may be phased down from a park and ride. We don't even call it a park and ride anymore. We're actually just calling it another parking lot, at least KU is. So that was pretty much taken off the list. We had one other location. We originally, back almost 2 years ago now, came to commission with 3 locations. One of them was 925 Iowa, and that is behind the Mercantile. Privately owned. Staff had talked to the owners of that on different occasions. They were open to the idea of a transit center as helping them do some development on their property. We came to commission. Commission decided that may be a good location for this. We immediately went back to the property owners, and they were non-responsive. So it's taken us a while, and we had a meeting earlier, and I think Commissioner Bowley asked us to go back and talk to the property owners again. They said no, they have other plans for that property, that they don't want to use it for a transit center anymore. They have, and I have heard of a couple different expansion plans that they've had, but they didn't really tell me what they were wanting to do with it. So that leaves us with the only one that's still up there of the 7, and that's the 2021 Stewart location. Proceeding with that Stewart location, this would be the site plan of how it would look, at least in our initial phases of our analysis. And that would be, there are 3 parcels between Iowa and Stewart. There's actually 4 parcels. The fire department is on, Fire Station 5 is on the northernmost parcel, and there are 3 parcels south of that. This is the southernmost parcel, which is butts up against 21st Street on its south side there. To do this, as you can see, the little traffic signal thing in the middle of Iowa there, in order for us to operate at this facility, we would have to put a traffic signal in at this facility. Part of that is we didn't want to be in conflict with the fire department at 19th and Iowa. We understand the critical nature of them getting in and out when they need to, so we need to have the ability to get in and out of that facility without being in conflict with the fire department and without creating any more congestion that's already there at that intersection. This gives you some site elevations. The top one, it would be if you were standing in the street looking north at the site, or what it would look like. The one on the bottom is if you were standing at the intersection of 21st and Stewart looking to the northwest. It would be kind of that angle of the site. In our discussions, and I just alluded to this a minute ago, this shows what we would do as far as our bus movement in and out of the facility. You can see that piece on 19th, there's not a red line on there at all. We wanted to keep our buses out of there. Of course, we're going to operate on Iowa. At this point, as you can see in the lower right hand on the inbound, you can see a dotted line coming in on 21st. That is a KU route that's operating, Route 38, that operates across Osdale and then goes up Stewart. Then we have some coming across Constant over to Iowa in that way, and then we have some coming in across 19th also. And the outbound is kind of the same way. But I'll get to the service on Osdale here in a little bit. So at the end of that, there were a lot of concerns. We knew that putting in a traffic signal there would probably cause some additional traffic, at least in the neighborhood. We realize that 21st Street is a way for students to go to Lawrence High, and they do travel that corridor. We realize that. Putting a signal in there might create a little more traffic. So we had Olson again. We changed the scope and had them do a traffic impact study. The traffic impact study, it says 21st Street and Iowa. It actually also looked at the 925 Iowa location, because at the time it was still being considered as a possible transit center location. The traffic concerns, and this really comes out of our initial meetings talking to the neighborhood at 21st and Stewart, was will there be parking there? What kind of parking there would be there? How many buses will they use? I will tell you that we intend on having no parking at all at that facility. Right now there is a parking lot on the second parcel, just north of the parcel that we are looking at. How many buses will use the site? We have a number of buses that will be using that site. Most of them will be coming in there on the half hour. The traffic analysis basically said that the buses will have no impact on traffic because of the patterns I showed previously of how they will get in and out of the site. They won't be on 21st Street. They won't be on Osdale. All that will be removed as a result of a traffic signal being in there. Will the buses conflict with children? For the most part, and I may be wrong on this, and maybe some people in the neighborhood would have a better insight on this, but most of the children are not walking between Iowa and Osdale to go to school. They're more in the neighborhood. So our buses would be actually operating between Iowa and Stewart and 21st on 21st there. Will there be a conflict with fire response? As I said earlier, we're going to stay away from 19th. Some of the devices that we've talked to the neighborhood about allows for fire apparatus to get in and out of their neighborhood without having any conflicts. Will it cause any problems for bicyclists? Again, some of the things that we've talked to the neighborhood about allows for bicycles to get free flow through there. Is a traffic signal warranted? Traffic signal is warranted, and I think it's on accidents alone that a signal is warranted at this time. It's the number of accidents and how critical the accidents are. Am I right, Chuck? That's generally what drives that. When there's an accident at that location, it's usually from somebody pulling out in front of pretty high-speed traffic on Iowa, and when they get hit, it's usually not a pretty thing. So it did warrant a signal there. As when we looked at the traffic analysis, yes, we do think that there will be an increase of traffic in the neighborhood, and we're looking at a 20% increase. And I may have Tom Walker Braddock or somebody speak to that in a little bit if there's any questions. And then the last question there was, what do we do to lessen the impacts of the signal and the additional traffic there? So that brings us to the last effort that we undertook in this, and that was a neighborhood meeting. So we had a series of 3 meetings with the neighborhood to discuss the potential of higher traffic going through their neighborhood, at least on 21st Street, and what they would recommend or what collectively we could agree upon would help reduce that traffic. These were the 3 priority issues that was raised by the neighborhood. They wanted to reduce the number of cars going through the neighborhood. They wanted to reduce access between the neighborhood and Iowa, and they also wanted to reduce the speed of the cars going through the neighborhood. So our efforts it was all about traffic calming. So what we ended up doing, one of the proposals that came out of this was a realignment of 21st and Stewart. Now, this is one of those new tech things. We'll get to see the transition of what we're talking about. 21st Street would not go straight out to Iowa. It would tee into Stewart, and I don't know how we would rename the street, whether it be 21st or Stewart, but it would tee in there. So that tee, what that causes people to do, instead of being able to turn off of Iowa, directly off of Iowa and have a straight shot down 21st, they would have to go down and make another turn. Well, we did another thing as part of this. If you look real closely where the T is, they decided a diverter would be a good thing to put in there. A diverter, what that would do would be, if somebody would be, say, coming southbound on Iowa, and they would make a left on the 21st, they would go down. Now they'd have to make another right on 21st, if they could do that. But a diverter keeps any eastbound traffic from getting on 21st Street. It would not eliminate, though, the ability to go both ways on 21st from the other side of that diverter. So if you can see right below the T there, there's a little, like a parking area. That was designed so it would give those people also that east-west access on 21st without having to be impeded also. And then we, the neighborhood and staff looked at chicanes. Chicanes are a way of slowing down that traffic on 21st. And this would be farther on down on 21st, down by Hillview. And it was a series of 3 chicanes. Now, chicanes are like putting a belt around the road. It really slows down. Anytime you narrow a corridor, people slow down. If you go to a highway and you see how wide a highway is, people want to go 70, 80, 100 mile an hour, whatever. The more narrow a street is, the closer the cars are, the more people want to slow down because there's too much going on for them. So a series of chicanes which would keep the travel lane at 19 feet. Am I right, Tom? I think the travel lane was going to be 19 feet, which it is now. You just have to weave a little bit, so you can't do that at excessive speeds. We are using some chicanes, I think. Are we using chicanes now, Chuck? We have a couple. Okay.
What do we have over by the golf course? That's pretty cool. Yes, they do have them there, but they're temporary.
Cross gate, is that where it's
cross? And they just done with muscle block. Curb stops.
So this is a look, the top portion of this map, and it's a long corridor between Iowa and Naismith, but this splits it in half. The top portion goes from Iowa to Osdell, and then the bottom portion goes from Osdell to Naismith. Kind of shows where everything is there. One of the things we incorporate in this also is the ability for bicycles to get through. There is space between the diverter and the curve for bicycles to get through. We know this is a biking corridor, so we wanted to maintain that as much as possible. And there's also space between the chicanes and the curb for them to get through there also, so they don't also have to weave through with cars weaving through at the same time. The cost, there are capital costs, of course, the direct site costs we're looking at is $1.8 million. Adjacent costs, which is some of the surrounding road work that needs to be done around it, well, that and the roadway improvements underneath it, ends up being about $900,000 combined with a contingency. In order to move there, we probably need some extra vehicles. That $620,000 is about the price of 2 additional vehicles that we would need. As a stopgap, we could easily buy some used vehicles and work with them for a while until we could get the funds to do that. Annual cost, we're looking at about $500,000 to re-network the system, so it would cost us about $500,000 more to operate at that facility. We have to extend some routes. We'd have to add a little bit more time in to do that. Maintenance of the facility, as you see, water, sewer, and electric, and then some kind of vandalism repair. So about $500,000 or so in annual operating cost increase, and about $4 million in capital cost. Now the next is the traffic calming devices and what they would cost. Installing the chicanes is a pretty inexpensive thing, as is the diverter, but realigning the intersection, of course, is about $400,000. So it ends up being about $500,000 to do the traffic calming in that corridor. So I have gone through here pretty quick and given you 2.5 years, and I wasn't talking fast this time. So I'm leaving it open for all the questions. I know there'll be plenty. So if I can answer any, as I said, I have Tom Walker Braddock here. I have Donna Holteen here from KU and Transit, and I have the general manager from NV Transit, who I swore I would not ask to come to the podium.
Okay. Bob, thank you for that very thorough presentation. Do we have any questions for Bob at this point?
Yeah. Bob, the 9th and Iowa site had annual operational costs that were about $120,000 less than the Stewart site. Would that be an ongoing thing, or is that just something that would be for a couple of years and then go away?
It's hard to tell. Initially, it would be an annual thing for a couple of years, but with restructuring, you might find some synergies there, and you might be able to wean that out, and that's part of what we would want to do.
When I looked at your study, I noted that the land on the north side of 9th Street wasn't really considered for that. I'd like you to take a look at the land on the north side where Centennial Park is and see if we can get that $120,000 a year there too.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you know this, but I do know several years ago there was a conversation. It was before my time in Lawrence. There was a conversation about putting a rec center, I think, wasn't there, in that was the park, is what we're talking about?
Yeah.
And I know that there was quite a bit of pushback about
The reason I
putting
say
rec-
that, Bob, is because I think that it's important for a transit center to be a destination center where there are amenities, restrooms, shelter, business opportunities. People at that site could go to the bakery, they could go to the grocery store, they could go to play pool. There are lots of things you could do there, and you could go to the park. Whereas at 21st and Stewart, that's a remote location. There's really no possibility for that kind of amenities to exist.
I'm going to piggyback off Commissioner Boley here. I have two concerns. I guess they're questions, maybe more than concerns, but they lead to concerns. So, under the memorandum where you address neighbors' concerns, my first one deals with your very first bullet point. It reads, "Staff has made a commitment to not route any buses other than the existing route on 21st Street to the east of Stewart." In the last couple of days, I've had the opportunity to talk to some people who routinely ride the T, and there's been a great deal of concern about the level of service that exists right now in East Lawrence. And I guess what my question would be is, if we're setting this up to where we're specifically reducing T traffic to the east of Stewart, are we going to make a bad situation worse? And my second question would be, your fifth bullet point, restroom facilities at the location will be accessible only by drivers. Public restrooms will be, if available. I guess I have a question about the if available. If we're building a hub for public transportation, why would we not have restrooms? I mean, that seems like a basic amenity.
Well, let me answer the restroom question first. Part of the concern of the neighborhood was they didn't want people hanging out in that general area. So the more you give them as far as restrooms and amenities and things, the more people might hang out in the neighborhood. So that was a discussion the neighborhood and staff had at several different levels. The service east of Stewart is really more concerned with the service between Stewart and Osdell, not East Lawrence. It's that service on Osdell. That is our commitment to pull the service off Osdell. Route 38 right now operates north. It comes out of the Melrose 25th area. It operates north on Iowa, turns on 23rd, goes up Osdell because it can't make a left-hand turn out of 21st. It serves Stewart, so it has to come up Osdell to get to Stewart, and so it can get back out. If we have a traffic signal at Iowa, then we can get in and out on 21st, and we won't have to go through Osdell. There is ridership down there, but I think they will be able to walk out to the transit center so and catch the service there. So did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm just I understand neighbors' concerns about people loitering, but I guess if we're trying to create a city where we have public transit, people need to be aware that the public is going to be on the transit. You have to have people to have public transportation, and people have to have a place to use a restroom. I think these are basic.
Yeah, and I agree. That's a decision that I think once we get down the road a little bit to whether restrooms would be there, at least at the start, or they will be there in due time. I think that's a decision that we're going to have to make that decision in due time. I will say that what we do in transit, we're not trying to keep people from riding the bus. So it's all about getting people to ride the bus, and adding amenities would definitely get them to ride the bus at different levels. So
thank you.
Mayor. Bob, question about, I think you've answered some of the questions that I may have had on 21st Street, stacking of traffic that's there. One of the concerns that I have might be the other way, stacking of traffic on Iowa Street. We're going to add another light onto Iowa Street. We just spent a fortune at 23rd and Iowa. I'm very proud of an intersection that used to have a service level of F that actually works now. And I don't want to do anything that's going to complicate that. What is the effect on that intersection by adding another light at 21st Street?
I don't know if we looked at 23rd Street.
Well, I think that's a very important part of my decision that I'll make, because I can't make that decision without the effect on 23rd.
Well, here's part of the problem we have with the traffic analysis. In order to do a traffic analysis the right way, you almost have to do a whole network analysis. Because when you do traffic analysis, it's almost like a plumbing thing. You put the pipes in, then you run the water in to see how it works. In order to find out what's going on at 23rd or some of those more distant kind of locations, you almost need to do a whole system analysis to find out what's going to go on there. And I think that's really what we were challenged with. We knew what the traffic would be on 21st. We measured some of that, and we could take a good estimated guess or educated guess at what the traffic would be, the increases. But when you start getting removed a couple intersections, it's a little bit harder to tell. I do think that, Chuck, go ahead.
I think at some point, Bob mentioned that 21st Street is going to need a signal anyway. I think through coordination with our ITS stuff, I mean, we're going to have one at 23rd, 21st, and 19th. I think for safety, at some point, that's going to happen, whether it's development on West Campus or the Transit Center or both. We're going to end up having a signal there.
Are there other alternatives for the signalization there?
Other than to cut off the access.
Right, yeah. I mean, so it's not just a signal. There are other things that could be done to improve safety at that intersection.
Could do that, yeah. If
right.
you don't have access, then you won't have no traffic problem.
Right,
yeah.
I mean,
but
that's
maybe
a highway, though. I mean,
well, I'm just saying there are things that you can do that would have less of an impact on the neighborhood than putting a signal in there. And I think, can you make a left turn out of KU's street there? You can't make a left turn out of KU's side of 21st Street. You can make the same deal on the westbound traffic. So, I mean, there are things we could do.
There are. I think one of the neighbors' concerns is to have the access because, you know, they may want to go to Iowa versus always having to go to 23rd. So, I think the neighborhood would.
Right. We
would
could
like
have
to
that
see the
discussion,
access
but
to
I
it,
just
yeah.
wanted to point out that there are alternatives to signalizing that for Mike's question.
Well, but I will say that in order for if we were going to operate there, we would have to have a signal to get in and out.
I understand that.
So that.
Yeah.
Second part. Bob, and I don't know if this would be for you or if it would be for Donna, and I'm going to guess it's probably for Donna. I was noticing in the master plan the change of where the existing, or soon to be, not there, Stauffer Place, is a new mixed-use development, or has in the master plan mixed-use development. Is there a potential for this hub to be located as part of that mixed-use development?
I'm going to leave that to you, Donna.
Hi, Donna Hulteen from KU Parking and Transit. I am not a huge part of the new Central District development, but I know in all of the RFPs that have gone out, there's been no talk of a transit facility in that little neighborhood that they're creating. The preliminary drawings that I've seen probably would not be able to accommodate something that size.
Okay. Just looking at the site of, on the master plan, I don't know, I can't tell, a whole lot of size, but it looks like to me it would fit if it would be something that would be acceptable as, the KU and Lawrence Public Transit partnership. I mean, is that something that is a possibility to look at?
I'm not sure if I can tell you that. I can convey that back to the folks that are working on the Central District plan.
Okay.
I can tell you there's wrangling over quadrants of that square between housing, athletics, and academics, and I think a lot of that is committed to green recreation space. And housing. So certainly, I think.
So they wouldn't want our big buses there, right?
Probably not. I mean, and they're coming through. There's going to be a roadway through there anyway that'll have a lot of buses on it.
I see that. I just want to know if that if it was a possibility to consider, because it looks like to me that there's enough space. One of the concerns that I have, and Donna, thank you. One of the concerns that I have, Bob, obviously, is what effect that we're going to have at 21st and Iowa. We have to put in a light, or you say, and Chuck just said, we're probably going to have to consider a light there someday. One of the big concerns that I have is, as I look at the site, one that I've always had, since the public hearings that we had at the fire station, various places, is how we're having to, the effect that we're having on the driving public and the people that live in that neighborhood, and especially along 21st Street. We're having to change their daily routine, I think, just to be able to accommodate us, and I'm not, I'm questioning the fairness of that.
Right. I understand.
Okay.
Questions for staff or Bob?
Yeah. I think it's important, especially when looking at those annual operating costs, that it might be safe to presume, I guess we could check right now that most of us are interested in a bathroom at the facility, and obviously that's going to add to the operating costs. So just so that you have accurate information, I think it might be a good idea to just, it seems like we have 3, no matter where the hub is located.
Yeah, there's definitely a cost associated with having a public bathroom, especially if it's a remote location like that. It's not in a park or something that Parks and Rec can take care of. So yeah, we do.
Okay. Other questions or comments for staff before we open it up for public comment?
Well, I guess just one more. Yes, sir. Bob, would you feel comfortable in looking at or being able to visit with KU about the Stauffer Place site? And I'll call it that because I don't have another
Yes,
thing
absolutely.
to talk. Okay. I assume there's another name for all that, but that's all I can think of.
Right now, I'm just looking at it as parking.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Bob, thank you. We will open it up for some public comment at this time, and please try to keep your comments brief because a lot of folks want to talk about this issue. Thank you.
Melinda Toomey. I'm going to speak on behalf of Pinckney neighborhood residents and the current vice president of the P&A. I am not really concerned about my neighbor, Professor Marquis, and his ability to get to campus and back, but I am worried about people deep in Pinckney neighborhood being able to get downtown, get to places like Just Food, and access things inside of my neighborhood. Other people come back towards Pinckney for the hospital, for Burt Nash, for healthcare access. Having this out at 21st Street, especially with no amenities like simple bathrooms, would certainly lead to people loitering because there's nothing else to do while you're waiting for your next bus to come. And there's no bathrooms, so where are you going to relieve yourself? I don't know if you've traveled to places where they don't have public bathrooms. France, okay? It's not a good public health idea to not have restrooms in places like the big bus hub for your town. And I'm really disappointed that the outcome of this study that the city has paid so much money for has told us to focus on the needs of people that probably already have a lot of resources. I'm disappointed. Thank you.
Thanks, Melinda.
I live at West 21st Street. Please be aware that
Sir, could we have your name for the record, please?
I'm Robert Silipini.
Thank you, Robert.
Please be aware that the fire department may likely request a traffic light at 19th and Stewart should this transit system go into effect there. And also, the neighborhood is concerned about the quality of air. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert, and also for the good work you do for Relay for Life. We're grateful. Thank you.
I'm Ray Souza, 1732 West 21st Terrace. For the sake of brevity, I wrote out a statement. Years ago, when a real estate agent was trying to sell me a home that needed some work, he chanted, "Location, location, location." I've never forgotten those words. Now, as we consider improving our public transportation system, something that seems very desirable to me, I think location and the needs of those who use the bus system are important considerations. A remote hub at 21st Street and Stewart Road doesn't make much sense to me. There are no commercial amenities at that site, nor are there any planned restaurant room facilities. When it comes to commercial activities or doing one's business, there's no there. Also, the site is not close or convenient to downtown, an area that most of the community wants to keep vibrant. An area that does have the advantages I have mentioned is in the vicinity of 9th and Iowa. It is a clear shot via 19th Street to downtown, and it is not far from Lawrence Memorial Hospital, Burt Nash Community Mental Health Center, Lawrence Surgery Center, and several other important medical practices and pharmacies. KU is even closer. Centennial Park is what I have in mind. It is a large park with extensive areas of land that are not utilized. A small patch dedicated to a hub would offer easy and convenient access to many businesses and community services. There are many theirs there. Thank you.
Mr. Souza, thank you for your comments. Other public comment on this item? Okay.
Give other people a chance. I have written comments were written in haste, as you know. We were late last night. I just feel like there's so much to digest in these written materials that were given, and all I'm thinking of are problems. With this site. I don't think that Mr. Nugent addressed. I thought that 23rd and Iowa were both state highways, and you couldn't have stops along them. There's the conflict with the fire station. I know that when my dad was at Brandonwood, they'd often come back on Clinton Parkway and then have to make that left onto Iowa, where you do have the right-of-way going north, but there's always was this merging traffic that merged even though they didn't have the right-of-way. So I just think that we've done a lot to that signal at 23rd and Iowa, but it isn't, it's still not safe. I think they had an accident there recently where the signal failed or something. So it's just, I mean, I don't even know, are they just letting us use it and build something and they still own the land? Are they giving us the land? To me, the whole conflict is that it just became, once they merged with KU on Wheels or something, it seemed to have taken over. And naturally, you're going to have high ridership if you have these passes that can be bought and you design routes that are designed to help, the KU students get where they want to go, presumably. So, I mean, I really hate to just discard the citizens of Lawrence. I mean, my neighborhood has lots, and apparently lots more planned in terms of intrusions. Everybody just loves that tiny roundabout at 19th and Barker so that they can speed through the neighborhood and, nobody can cross the cross streets in 19th, because there's just nonstop traffic. But, I'm disturbed the whole approachability of Mr. Nugent and so forth in this whole process, because I did go to the meeting, I think it was a year ago, spring, which I wrote about in my memo, and that was what it was supposed to be about, and yet he wouldn't discuss. He just showed, pictures of buildings in other cities, but he wouldn't discuss that, and he actually forbade, and if you tried to say anything, ask any questions like, why did the buses go at High Point Apartments go circle all the way through in the different places, but they don't do that at Edgewood Public Housing, where they're, really set back and lots of different streets and so forth. And he just would, nope, I couldn't ask that question. I was not allowed. The little survey we filled out made it didn't even have this, even though this was advertised as a reception, the reception / meeting / they call it one thing, but it's not people sitting down, hearing each other talk, hearing other people's ideas. It's sort of, a few people there with materials. And we had a little thing we could fill out, but it did not have this issue on it, even though that this issue of this relocation to the site was there. So I'm just at a loss at why this would how this could serve the community. Another thing that we need to point out is that, have you ever made the mistake of trying to drive home north on Iowa when a game is getting out? You will not be allowed to turn, until maybe 9th Street. So, there are a lot of logistics with KU and mass quantities of people emptying and exiting. It seems like a really troublesome. And I can understand people wanting to protect their neighborhood. Everybody does, but we need bus service. I think the people in Brook Creek, I mean, they don't even have it. I think they took it away from even the East Lawrence Center. And my route can 10 minutes get me downtown. It's half a block from my house, but then to go home, I have to first go all the way down to Prairie Park, which is almost the 31st, and then circle back to get to my house. And all this would change. So I'm not saying we have I appreciate your comments about restrooms. He had something in one document. There was just too much to read, definitely too much to print. But I'm still unclear exactly about where this site exactly, is and how it relates to the fire station. But, it just seems that we've developed by this merger, we've developed and the design of the routes, we've developed a high population of ridership from KU. With other routes, we could bring in other riders. If I lived out in Brook Creek or even further, I mean, I see people all the time who are walking home past my house, trying to get to Edgewood, or in that neighborhood because there's no direct bus that'll take them to a grocery store like Dillon's. So I'm just, as I said in my memo, which maybe I should quickly read, that I just feel that, I went to a meeting about this, and that's not even in here. We've had, and ironically, when you ask KU or KUEA about, letting us have a site for the police station, they don't want us to. So, there is a little irony there in my mind. So I am opposed to the relocation of this location, and do not accept the lengthy list of rules, which he didn't even get into here. It's too much to digest now. I believe the transit is much too strict about some things, for example, not allowing a folding shopping cart or laundry or a beverage. There are just some things that we have the minutes from May and June advisory committee meetings. Why wasn't downtown appropriate? Just because we want to have festivals or parades, and we let somebody quickly build buildings that in the blink of an eye, they're built with, I forgot the word, help me out, but when you get exemptions or whatever, so you get to build closer to the street than you would ordinarily. What's the word, Scott?
Setbacks?
Variances.
Pardon me?
Variances.
Thank you. So it just happened so quickly, and prior to that, we're saying we don't have established rules and policies, and yet this has been going on for years. And if you ever went to one of those shelters or tried to figure out which way the bus was going during that long interim period when they were in New Hampshire or anything, there weren't routes posted, there weren't signs that were clear as to what bus was going to stop there or not. And so I just feel that we haven't had very good communication about what our needs are. Some of the early meetings, people were sort of micromanaging. They were talking to existing riders and talking about minute changes to the schedule, as opposed to saying who isn't riding the bus that would ride the bus if we did this, and what would it take to get more riders. Well, we all know it would take longer hours and more frequent, bus service, but, which routes, when it was started, it was told, which turned out not to be true, that there was some government funding involved and that we were not going to be allowed to have people go to leisure activities or something. It only could be for traveling to work and back. And so there were a lot of kind of restrictions on that. I mean, which, isn't true. So I really just don't even understand where they do plan to stop and how safe it would be. It's just really, thank you very much, Commissioner Bowley and others who have longed for, a destination. It doesn't have to be that that's the only place you ever go. I have some problems with going downtown for some things when I'm trying to get somewhere else, and a lot of times a bus will get there and you'll have just missed the connection by 5 minutes. But I would rather amuse myself downtown.
Ms. Sinclair, I sincerely appreciate your comments, but we've got other folks that are waiting to speak, so if you could kindly wrap it up, I would appreciate it.
Which I didn't.
Well, we can adopt it as far as, the entire text that you provided us into the minutes of our meeting, if you would like.
I appreciate it. I made a couple little notes as people were talking, because I think it's still even unclear as to what exactly the little parcel is. It where the armory was? Is that it?
No, ma'am. It's to the north of there.
Well, the map was too small to read, and I couldn't tell. So I think that Centennial Park sounds like a great idea. And
well, Ms. Sinclair, if I could step in, Mayor, and I would be happy to make a motion that we adopt the comments that you presented as part of the the minutes of our meeting.
Really, I mean, I was brief because there was just an overwhelming amount.
I'm serious. We'll do that.
Huh?
We'll do that because I think we've already read them.
Yeah, we've got the comments.
And I just was trying to write down some things as people were talking about things, and it went on. I don't know exactly what that 925 Iowa is, which block, and they definitely said no.
It's behind the Mercantile.
Right.
It's where the recycling containers are. And
you mean directly behind the
Right, behind the Mercantile.
Where that big just open space
Ms. Sinclair,
is.
there are other folks who really would like to speak tonight, so we'd appreciate it.
Well, I did spend the whole day reading the stuff.
Well, they may also as
Right.
well, Ms. Sinclair.
I'm backing right down. I'm going to go back to my seat. I don't want to get spanked. But I can't tell you how difficult it is to talk to Mr. Nugent about this subject.
Thank you, Ms. Sinclair.
Thank you. Mayor, I would suggest that we include the text of Ms. Sinclair's message to us in the minutes.
Okay, is that a motion?
Please.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to include Ms. Sinclair's comments into the minutes by Commissioners Amix and Bowley. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Ms. Sinclair, thank you for your comments. Melinda, good evening.
Good evening. Hang on just a second, Megan. You're up with Elmo. Thank you. I'm Melinda Henderson, and I live in Brook Creek neighborhood. And then how do I make it better, or how do I make it Okay, starting over, I'm Melinda Henderson. I live in Brook Creek neighborhood. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you about this issue tonight. I have a few, excuse me, I have a few comments on things that have already been said, and then I want to talk about the map for a minute. Commissioner Amix, you had asked what the impact, I think, might be to 19th Street. Did I get that?
Actually, Melinda, it was on Iowa Street and specifically 23rd.
Oh, okay. So then my question would be, now, how's this going to impact 19th Street if 21st Street is closed off going east? It's my understanding that a lot of people who travel to travel to Lawrence High School use 21st Street. So would that impact 19th Street then, which is already kind of crowded? So I haven't heard any discussion on that, and I don't know if we want to ask that question if we're going to do more traffic analysis. I don't know. I just feel like this whole thing has turned into rocket science, and that's really distressing. I just cannot believe there is not a simpler way to come up with a better system. I don't even know if we have route planning specific software or not. But I'm not supportive of the 21st Street location either. It's not clear to me if I wanted to get downtown, if I'd have to go to 21st Street and transfer. I don't know. Before we make any kind of a decision, though, on the location of a new transit hub, I wonder if we could get some kind of an idea what those new routes would look like. I don't know if that would be possible or not, because I don't know what kind of software we use or anything. I'll tell you why I'm asking that. So here's our current map right now. And you can see, I think we're doing pretty good about at least getting most of the town covered, especially on the outskirts. And then we have the kind of flex systems too. Now, see this area from 11th to 15th down to 19th Street. All of those little white markings there are streets where low-income people live. That's my neighborhood. It's called Brook Creek neighborhood. We have no service there. And when I pointed this out, when I went to discuss the lack of service in our neighborhood at one of the open houses last year, I was told, sure you do. And I said, well, how do I get downtown? Well, you either walk up 11th to Connecticut or you hop on the map of one. Okay. So this is how I would get downtown. I pick up, okay, if I live out here anywhere, I've got to at least walk up to Haskell. Just Food is right over here. Okay? I would catch the bus. I would go south on Haskell, east on 19th, south on Harper through Prairie Park, west back to Haskell, and this is the route Patricia was referencing earlier about trying to get home. West, and then I would go west, pick it up on Barker, Connecticut, and then get to the library or to City Hall. Seriously? This is okay. This is, sure, we're taking care of Brook Creek neighborhood. Literally, that's what I was told. No, we're not ignoring you. Yeah, you are. In a big way. And I would think that the people who live in my neighborhood, including me, would really like to take the bus to get down here, to get downtown. And I think Mr. Nugent said something tonight in response to Commissioner Herbert's comment. We want to improve services for the customers. I can't be a customer because, for various reasons, I'm not always able to walk to 11th and Connecticut. I don't always have time to take a detour through Prairie Park to get downtown. I share a car with the friend that I live in, so I'm lucky if I can make arrangements. Not everybody in my neighborhood has that opportunity. So I really want to encourage you all to think about who are you really trying to serve here? Is it KU, or is it the residents who really need transit the most? Because right now, it doesn't look like it's the latter to me. I was very supportive of the sales tax, imagine that, in 2008 to get our transit system started. I can guarantee you now that if this issue is not resolved and we don't have a more creative and efficient bus system and a better location for a transit hub, I will not support renewal of the sales tax. I can't. It's just will look like money down the drain to me. And I want to support. I want us to have a good transit system. I just don't think we have it. And we've got to really be more creative in how we're trying to get there. Thank you for putting up with my comments. I appreciate it. Good luck with this. And I'm always happy to answer questions.
Linda, thank you. Matt?
I just wanted to answer your first question. You were asking about 21st Street, if that's access with Lawrence High. Well, I work at Lawrence High, and I can tell you lots of Lawrence High traffic goes down 21st. In fact, it's not even the issue with the Indian Hills neighborhood. They say, well, people are cutting through inappropriately. It's not actually cutting through inappropriately on 21st because there's actually Lawrence High's parking lot feeds at 21st. I think it's 21st and Griever Terrace. Got the soccer field, the baseball diamond. And so absolutely there's a lot of Lawrence High traffic, myself included, that takes 21st every day, twice a day.
Right, which I just think that's really going to clog up 19th and Louisiana and that whole area too. Thank you.
Linda, thanks for your comments. Other public comment on this item? Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening. John Coffin. I live in on 21st Street. First, I got to say, I'm kind of new to the area. I've been living here about a year and have ridden the bus system just to see how it worked. And I got to commend you guys because it, compared to a lot of places, it's really great. It's a really great system. Having said that, I just have a couple questions on what happens on 21st Street. At that bump where you've got it, you've got that little turn that goes into, I guess, Stewart. Okay, so if I was having a hard time hearing back there, but you can come in from Iowa and go east, and then you have to make a turn around that dog leg, and then there's where 21st Street also turns and meets Stewart.
Correct.
Are they going to be able to make a right there and continue down 21st Street? That's my first question.
It looked like it to me.
So I don't know.
We'll get an answer to your question.
Okay,
Go ahead and ask
that's
the second one, then we'll have Bob.
Okay, the second one is, okay, so if we want to go, am I to understand that is going to be one way on 21st coming west? Coming east, I'm sorry. And that, if the answer is yes, then my second question is, so say I'm on 21st and I want to go towards Iowa, will I have to now go to 19th, go around and go to 19th and go over? And then I guess there's another question. You're talking about putting chicanes, or I don't understand what you're talking about there. Are you going to narrow the street? It's already pretty narrow there. And are you going to increase the buses that run there, or are they going to come out of that terminal and go down 21st? Can they, or is that not going to happen? So basically my concerns are what's going to happen to 21st Street right there where that turn is going to be. And of course I'd rather see it, I don't know, I think it does need to have restrooms if it's going to be there. I mean, that's kind of if we have to beef up security because of all the homeless people that are going to flock now because of that, think that's the fear, probably. I don't really feel that way, but, so those are my questions.
Okay.
Thanks.
John, thank you. Bob, can you come up and I'll just ask these questions one at a time. Was it Mr. Kaufman? Coffin, okay. All right, very good. I wrote that down wrong. So Mr. Coffin's first question is if you could bring up the map.
I guess you can't because there's a diverter in the middle.
And you want the map, or you want the
2/3 of them working.
the T intersection? Is that what you're talking about?
There we go. So first question was, if we're coming in from Iowa and going east, are we going to have to make a turn around the dog leg where 21st Street meets Stewart?
If you could see my pointer here, that diverter will, if somebody's coming in from Iowa here, coming across 21st, they will not be able to make a right-hand turn on 20.
They have to go north on Stewart.
They'll have to go on up Stewart to 19.
Hold on.
Okay. Go ahead and explain that again. So they will not be able to continue east on Stewart. They will have to go around the dog leg.
Right.
Okay. So I guess that addresses the second question. If it's one way on 21st Street going east, which it will be.
It's not actually. It'd be two-way traffic. It'd just be a diverter.
Right. We won't allow traffic in going eastbound past that T intersection. You won't be able to make a right-hand turn in there, but once you get past that, you can go both directions. There'll still be two-way traffic.
Okay.
On the other side of the road, we just won't let anybody in there.
Unless it's not signalized, and then, the suggestion that Stewart made maybe about not being able to turn left, that would not be a feasible way to get onto Iowa Street then, if that in fact were to...
Right.
Okay, all right. And then, can you speak to the chicanes and the narrow street, and if we're increasing the buses that coming out of the terminal and then heading down 21st Street?
There will be no buses going down 21st at all. The traffic, and it adds again to the traffic, it'll be on 19th. 19th is more apt to handle the traffic than 21st is by far. The traffic for buses will be on 19th Street. We'll have nothing going down 21st. And I have this one caveat that I've said to the neighborhood. Unless the neighborhood wants service in there, then we would talk to them about how we provide service in there. But we have no intentions on operating anything on 21st Street. One, it's a very narrow street. We don't like operating on those streets anyway. Chicanes, what they really do, it causes you to weave. So if you have one on one side and two on another side, you have to weave between those. So normally you're going to slow down to make that weaving motion. So it's really an attempt to drop the speed down. Instead of somebody just pinning their ears back and going, which some of these high school students can do, and I hope not employees, but at least it gets them to slow down enough to weave through there. And if there's traffic coming, it gets them to slow down even more. So
okay. Bob, thank you. All right.
Would that remove the parking, the on-street parking? I assume there's on-street parking there now.
I think there was going to be two.
Yes, it would remove, I believe, 4 spaces, but those residences are affected and they have 2 car garages and 1 driveways. But it would remove on-street parking.
Okay, thank you. All right. Mr. Coffin, welcome to Lawrence. Hope that addressed your comments. Any other public comment on this item? All right. We will bring it back to the commission.
So the options before us, Mayor, are?
Well, we're just needing to direct staff on, I think, if a majority of us do not feel like that the 21st Street location is a good idea, I feel like that would be good direction. If we want to direct staff to look at other locations at 9th and Iowa, and then the one that has been that you suggested, I think that we need to direct staff to do that. If we want to direct staff to, and I'm just regurgitating things I've heard, that we want to make sure that there are amenities around the transit hub, and that the transit hub needs to include restrooms. I think those would be good things to direct staff to do. Ultimately, I think the most important one is whether or not 21st and Stewart is a feasible location.
You know, I think the elephant in the room that maybe didn't get brought up is the fact that we have before us a very legitimate threat of no funding for the T in a couple years, 4 years. And so, I'm not making this as a statement for or against, but I think we need to, when we're making our decision, have that looming in front of us that we have a pretty substantial fund balance for the T, which is great, and could be used to build this hub. It could also be used to save the T in 4 years when voters kill it. Because, I mean, you're looking at a situation where, because of what's happening at the state, we're facing a 10% sales tax. And, I could see a lot of people in the community, when the option is put before them to reduce their sales tax burden, jump at that opportunity. I think that's, I think there's a real legitimate threat that we don't have funding for this in 4 years.
I think that we address that by making sure that the transit hub has amenities. I mean, we have to make it the best possible experience for the rider. And
how does that address financing?
Well, I mean, if we have more people riding it, we have more supporters for the transit. And if it's working, I mean, that's the deal.
Okay. Then I
got to
guess
make sure it works.
I guess it comes back to the question Melinda asked, that who are we serving? Making sure that the location is in a place and services being offered to those who need it.
One of the interesting points that Mr. Souza brought up was the idea of the shot straight down 9th Street to downtown. Downtown is our current hub, and I don't want to get too far away from that. And I think it's Centennial. I'd like to look at the other side.
Okay. Do we want to continue to proceed with the 21st and Stewart location? Okay.
I think there's been a lot of great work, but I want to see a lot more. I know it's a difficult issue, and I mean, that's an amazing amount of work already, but yeah, I think you got a new commission, unfortunately. Sometimes you got to recreate the wheel for us.
I don't love it.
So,
Mayor, I could, I have concern about the site. Mostly has to do with the answers of traffic along Iowa Street, the addition of a new light there, the effects that it has on 23rd and even 19th, as was suggested. Also, the traffic along 21st as the access to Lawrence High. I would like to have us look at the area where Stauffer Place is, if that could be a possibility. It's a new area. It said mixed use as I went through the master plan, and see if that is even a possibility. It may not be, but I think it's something to look at. I don't know. I know that there's some requirements we have to go through, and on park property, of whether or not we can use it for another source. I know it used to be all kinds of strings attached that if you're going to use it for something else, that you had to go through some kind of process.
We would have to dig into that. I'm not sure.
Right. So I know that we would have to look at that as, because the way that we received that property, and Lord knows I don't remember that one. But
I guess I would point out there is a parking lot there now. So.
Well, I understand, parking lot, but other uses, I think, you have to look at those, and maybe other governmental uses come into play there. But no, that would be my suggestion. I'm just not ready to do 21st and Stewart at this point.
Even though it's named at different spelling.
They spelled it wrong.
That's right. That's right. I really appreciated all the comments tonight. Melinda's comments were, both Melinda's actually, were especially great in offering varying perspectives on ensuring that we're getting the transit service to the people who need it. And really, it's a public health idea too. I mean, I'm going to get a hold of our friends at the health department to see what sort of way they want to enter the conversation. Matt, I agree with you completely. We're not done with what the state, I think, is going to have to do to balance the budget. And it was a 0.35% increase. We're still in the hole by $500,000. I don't think I speak out of turn by saying the next 3 years under the leadership of Sam Brownback, I don't think they're going to get any better. And so I think that we're going to have some challenges there. So I'm concerned certainly about that, but I think we have a responsibility on behalf of the public to weigh the decisions of amenities and making a good system with, recognizing that we need to have a way to pay for this, in a few years should voters not help us re-up it. I think the better part of the conversation is how we can work it into our capital improvement plan going forward from 2019 to work this in somehow, and have a backup plan if a sales tax maybe.
And that's kind of that was really the intent of my comment is, I hate to kill the idea of a hub, and I'm certainly not trying to do that. I want to be very clear about that. But when you're sitting on $6 million in a fund balance, that is your backup plan. If we have a fund balance like that, it's become clear that the sales tax that we authorized to pay for this has more than exceeded perhaps the need, which is why the fund balance has grown. If we let that grow steadily till 2019, who knows how much money you're sitting on then. But should voters, and I think it's a real fear. I think the police department vote, a lot of people voted down the facility based on the fact that we were trying to authorize it with the sales tax. There's a lot of people, Stuart, when you were campaigning, that was a big part of your campaign, was talking about the sales tax.
I like the transit tax, Matthew, because it's sunsetted after 10
that.
years. I like people asking people again about whether they want to do it.
Right. I'm really afraid that a lot of people will show up as voters, and they may love the T, they may ride the T, but see this as an easy opportunity to get their sales tax backed off a little bit. And I hope that doesn't happen. I hope we're able to. It's a public service, but we need to have a backup plan. And spending all of our money 2 years or a year before we potentially have no funding source, I'm not sure it's a smart idea.
Well, I think realigning the routes with the hub would be a great benefit to the riders. And what they're talking about is getting 30-minute routes all around town. That's a really important thing to do. So I don't want to drop this. I want to keep looking at it. I want to get a hub with amenities. And let's get those routes to 30 minutes. That'll be a big improvement. And we'll be able to address some of the concerns like Melinda had about, getting folks on the bus.
So direction to staff, 21st and Stewart off the table. Am I hearing consensus? Okay. 9th and Iowa, Stauffer Place. And to look at redoing the routes to serve our lower income neighborhoods, Pinckney, Brook Creek, East Lawrence, North Lawrence. And
that's in the amenity conversation.
Right.
I'm withholding my comments.
Okay. So I suppose we should go ahead and if you want to make some comments about amenities, but that's kind of what I've heard so far in relationship to direction. Is this helpful?
Yes, and Commissioner, just one quick comment, I think. As we have been looking at this over a number of years, just realize that there is not going to probably be the perfect site. Every site is going to have its challenges. This is a use that generates traffic by its nature, but we feel like getting this site, this site is really a key to us being able to provide better service, which I think is one of the things that we talked with voters about a number of years ago. So just some thoughts, but we'll be happy to look at these sites and bring it back to you.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very much in favor of using that money in there to improve the system now, whether that includes a hub or not. I think increasing the frequency to 30 minutes is definitely a great idea. I'd like us to look at it now. I do understand that downtown isn't big enough really to do that, so perhaps we can have a better transfer station instead of a hub building somewhere, and that would just even be where a few routes meet, in different parts of the city. I think one of the flaws in our overall transit system is that most routes go downtown, and I'd like to see them perhaps interconnect better in a couple of locations throughout the city. I don't have a transit background. I have no ability to determine what is the best location for those. But to me, I think that's really important to improve the system, and so that all of the buses aren't downtown, which in front of the library is difficult. I do have a few things about the amenity policy, which I'm really excited about. I enjoyed reading about that. That has to do with the shelters, bus pads. I think it's great that we're coming up with a policy. I had 3 things that I wanted to discuss with that. When I looked through the policy, a lot of it was very rider-driven, the counts, which is great. That's a solid way to determine it. But I definitely want us to look more at getting those amenities at key locations. So that would be key transfer points in the system, grocery stores, schools. Also, I think we need to be a little more helpful for the business owners that have a bus station in front of their business. For instance, me and Stuart were walking around 9th and Iowa when we went to Beamer's Barbecue, because I know that guy and he's a great guy. And he is upset because where the bus stop is, people get off and step onto the ground, and it's like just a dirt pit, and we don't want that. So I think that we should put bus pads in more locations. I think business owners would appreciate that, and people just getting off the bus, not getting muddy, I think would appreciate that. That's an amenity, I guess, that's a little more difficult to quantify, perhaps. Obviously, the homeless shelter, we've talked about that, the Lawrence Community Shelter a little bit. Have we already worked on getting a bus shelter or bench there, or both?
We have been talking, and Bob's coming up with some different options about that particular location.
Okay, yeah, I think that's really important. That's definitely a location. And then I didn't know how to really describe this one, so I'm not a very articulate person, so I'm sorry. But at 23rd and Harper, all along 23rd Street, the distance from the sidewalk to the street is quite large. It's like 15 feet, maybe. Chuck might know the exact number. I'm not sure it matters, but it's a very large distance. And so when I drive down 23rd Street, I see a lot of people sitting in the grass. So if we can do something to put bus pads there and maybe some benches, but also to connect whatever that amenity might be to the actual sidewalk, I think would be very helpful for people. So because you get off the bus, let's say we would have put a bus pad there right by the street, people step onto that, and they still have to cross 15 feet of grass, which could be muddy, icy, snowy. We get all of it here in Lawrence. So that's something I'd like us to somehow add in there a little bit. So those are my suggestions that I came up with, but I love that we're going to have an amenity policy. I think that's super great. Thank you.
And Vice Mayor, that last location, 23rd and Harper, you said?
Yeah, all along 23rd Street there.
Okay.
That's just the one that popped in my mind, but Haskell might as well for a quick trip.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I agree. It's just another way to make it easier for the users. They don't get muddy or wet, or which is easy to do.
Okay. Good direction?
Yes.
Do you need an official motion for any of that stuff?
I believe we have approval of the amenities, guidelines, and policies, if you would concur with that.
Well, I would move to approve it. Time if we're done with the discussion.
Okay.
Second.
All right. Motion made, seconded to approve the amenities, guidelines, and policy by Vice Mayor Soden with some of the suggested modifications.
Yeah, they have a matrix in there, and I'm not sure how that would fit in the matrix, but those are my suggestions.
Okay. Seconded by Commissioner Amix. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and we'll see everyone back here at about 8 o'clock. Thank you. All right, we are back in session. A little bit of an extended break there. Thank you all so much. This is like Groundhog Day all over again. The meetings last night, meeting tonight. Just makes me wonder if we have one tomorrow. We don't. That's right. Okay, next item on the agenda is to consider authorizing the interim city manager to finalize and execute the agreements with BNSF Railway and Amtrak regarding the land transaction and lease arrangements on the Santa Fe Station project, and consider authorizing the mayor to execute the city-state agreement with KDOT related to the grant and the construction of the project. Hi, Diane.
Hello, Mayor. This item also may be a little bit like Groundhog Day. This item has been here before and has been a number of years in the making. Back in 2008 when we started discussing this project, it's taken a number of years to get to this point, so I appreciate everybody's patience. We had a couple of rounds of working to apply for grants for this project, and were finally successful 2 years ago in getting a major grant that was done in whole for the entire project, which is somewhat rare to be able to do. The complexities around this project surround the fact that this station is located on active rail. It had a crew in it that was BNSF. It's owned by the railroad. Amtrak also uses it as an active Amtrak stop. And then another complexity with the project has been the Kansas Department of Transportation now administering these projects, which previously used to be administered at the local level. But here we are this evening with a number of agreements in front of you for your consideration. Just a little bit about the project in general before I get into the details about the agreements. The city did receive a grant of $1.2 million for the approximate $1.5 million project. We do have match that has been set aside for this project. This project was budgeted in the capital improvements program last year, and when it was evident that it was not going to be able to proceed last year, those funds were reserved, and there's $350,000 that's available in the capital reserve fund to provide the city's match. The project overview is that this project would complete various site work. I have up here a map showing the depot and the site. This is really the master plan of a new layout. The site work would involve restoring the existing brick parking lot on the west side of the building, which is located here where my cursor is, that's showing up. And then would also remove the current asphalt parking lot on the west side, create a landscaped area that you see there on the plan that would really turn that green space into something, a nice focal point that would also utilize a historic fountain base there. And then sidewalk improvements, lighting, fencing, and roof and storm drainage. The building work on the exterior would include a new roof, insulation, work on the fascia and the planter, and interior work including doors, windows, painting, restoration, ADA compliant restrooms, all ADA related improvements, a geothermal cooling system, a boiler, fire suppression system, a solar system, and electrical improvements for the building. There are 5 agreements that are required to be executed by the city in order to complete this transaction. So we've got 3 major parties we need to work with, and that is the BNSF Railway, Amtrak, and then the state. So let me talk a little bit about the 3 agreements with Amtrak, or excuse me, with the railway. We have a land lease for the underlying land. And this would enable the city to lease the site that you see here on the map. I should note that, back up just a little bit on the site improvements, the current project will not fund the parking lot that's shown here on the east side of the building. So on the lower right-hand side of the map there, That part of the parking lot will have to wait until we can afford it at a later time, or as you know, has been discussed in the past, our application for other grants to maybe have this serve as a trailhead for a trail connection and a variety of other ideas that we've had with how to perhaps fund that. So I wanted to note that. But all the ground here would be subject to this lease with the BNSF. It's a 30-year term. The city can use the land for any lawful purpose that we have. We worked a lot on the environmental issues. That was really the last time that all the agreements had come before this body. One of the key items that we spent a lot of time talking about was environmental liability. Staff feels very good with where this agreement is, and BNSF has come a long way in granting us what we have in this agreement, which is basically that the city will be responsible for anything environmental on the property that we do once the property is under our control. They will continue to be responsible for things that may have happened on the property 100 years ago before the city had control. And originally, to show you how far that's come, originally they had wanted to transfer all of the environmental liability to us. We did do a phase 1 environmental study as a result of this process, and that study came back with no further study recommended. We also had an environmental attorney that worked with staff to help review all of the agreements that you have and make suggestions that we incorporated in our comments back to BNSF. The next agreement is a building ownership transfer agreement. So while we lease the underlying ground, the railroad will basically give us the depot. The depot they're going to give us as is at no cost to the city. The agreement protects certain personal property that's in the building. There's the building has benefited, I guess, from some benign neglect over the years. It's fortunate to have much of the original furnishings in the building, and those are things that we want to be able to maintain and keep. So this agreement has BNSF continuing to provide us that personal property. They transfer the building as is. There are some items like asbestos and things like that in the building, which of course is typical of a building this age. We know those things about the building. We have extensively studied and characterized the building, so we feel comfortable because we know what we're getting into with taking over the structure. The one thing I will mention is BNSF will require a repurchase clause, and so this is somewhat unique, although it was stated to us as a firm requirement that the railroad have this in it. This would require, if BNSF executes or exercises this repurchase option, for the city basically to sell the depot back to BNSF. I'm told by the BNSF people that this is a requirement in all of their leases that they have. They really don't intend on executing that provision, although they have to have it in there. In the event that they would do that, it would require them to reimburse the city the cost of renovations less accrued amortization. So we'd basically amortize all of our expenses over time, and they would pay us accordingly. We also have a premises lease agreement. So this is a lease back agreement for space for the railroad to have space within the depot. Basically, this is the space that they currently occupy, although it's somewhat modified, which was also a negotiation point with the BNSF. One of the things that this agreement does is it frees up another access point, a hallway, to one of the front doors that had previously been behind a locked corridor. And it also frees up the agent's office to be an open public area. So there's some benefits in that to us. The city would be responsible for utilities and keeping the building in good repair. And again, this lease back agreement would be for a 30-year term. Moving on to the Amtrak agreement, we have one agreement with Amtrak. This agreement with Amtrak is, of course, one of the things that are motivating factors for improving this building is to be able to have it be a nice gateway for the community for people that are traveling on Amtrak. And it's also a requirement for BNSF for us to accommodate Amtrak. So this agreement provides a 20-year lease term for Amtrak to continue to use this depot. They would really not pay us anything for the lease per se, but they would pay us toward some of the operating expenses for the building, as you see there. So this is an estimated figure, and part of it is we don't know some of the expenses until after the new systems are put in place. We hope that the utility bills will be a lot less than what they have been with geothermal and solar that we're putting in. But their contribution would be in ratio to the space that they're occupying in the building, and it would still enable the city to use the common area when not being used by Amtrak. But of course, the configuration of how it's configured with the lobby and things like that would not be changed, both for practical reasons for Amtrak and also historic reasons. Amtrak had written the city a letter several years ago indicating a willingness to contribute toward ADA improvements on the building. Those discussions are still ongoing with Amtrak as far as what the details would be of that. So I don't feel like we're at a place that we can hold these agreements up. We need to move forward with the project, but we continue to talk with them about their willingness to contribute to those improvements, and we are separating out the ADA improvement costs with the state when they bid the project so that we have a segregated amount of what those improvements have been. So there's some additional details, and I don't want to presume that those contributions will be definite, but at least they're a good possibility. And Amtrak has put a lot of money into this particular station over the last few years. So the requested action in front of you this evening is to authorize me to finalize and execute the agreements with the railroad and with Amtrak on the land transaction and the building transaction, and to authorize the mayor to execute the city-state agreement with KDOT to enable the project to proceed and for our acceptance of the grant. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Diane, thank you. Questions for Diane?
I have a question, but I guess it's not really a question. Just so that people can hear, will you explain the woods that are on the other side of the railroad tracks and why those stay woods how they are? They have has a conservation area. Just because we're talking about this area, I think it's important for people to know.
Well, you may have said it best, Vice Mayor. I don't have a lot of understanding about that, but my understanding of the area that's shown here in the upper right-hand corner is and that's the area between the depot and the river, has a conservation overlay on it that requires it to be in a natural state. That's the extent that I know about it. I don't know a lot of other details.
I think it has to do with the eagles.
I think so too, and the non-disturbance of their habitat.
Yeah, especially in the wintertime, which is why this plaza on the other side of Riverfront is closed between January and April or something like that. So it's wooded for a purpose.
And that area, I should say, is not part of the lease. It's only the area, and I don't think this cursor's for whatever reason not working quite on the map, but actually I've got another exhibit that shows this well. There's a little better picture of the boundary of the land lease.
Well, thank you for working on this all these years. A lot of work.
You did, thank you.
Any other questions for Diane? Go ahead, Matt.
Just real quick, do we have any ballpark figures on the cost for the asbestos removal or the ADA compliance issues?
I have those broken out on another sheet. I don't have those with me right now. And unfortunately, Stan Hernley, the architect, couldn't be here this evening to visit about those. But those have all been taken into account in terms of the overall project when we submitted the grant. So it does cover all of the that environmental work that we needed to do on it, as well as the ADA improvements.
Terrific. Thank you. Diane, the only thing I had in reading through the BNSF land lease in section 13 under safety, dangerous, and hazardous conditions, it looks like the city would be liable should, like BNSF, their train comes off the tracks and slams into people. And it looks like we're like taking on liabilities should an accident happen with the train. Can you address that for me?
Well, I will try my best, and this is something that the city attorney and I have worked on extensively with them back and forth, and was one of the areas that we really tried to make substantial movement with them on. These negligence issues are something that they just will not give on. You will notice that in many points in those agreements, they have them in all capital letters, and there's a reason why. So we have talked through those points with them. They are not willing to accept any changes. So while I would say that that's not ideal for the city, if we want to complete the transaction, it's something that we're going to have to agree to.
Thank you.
Does the engine that's usually parked there, will it stay there, or will that?
There is a provision that they can continue to use that if they need to. So that's part of their ability to continue to utilize the station if they need.
So they'll still have an office in there?
They have indicated to me that they still need that space, yes.
All right. Any questions? All right. Thank you, Diane. We will open it up for public comment this time.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Tonight I'm representing the East Lawrence Neighborhood Association. My name is Katie Walsh. There's so many people to thank. This is a happy evening. I want to especially thank Don Cantor and Jim Buddy, who sent the original letters, I think 9 or 10 years ago, to the commission at the time saying, hey man, our station is in terrible shape. We've got to do something. Would you talk to Amtrak? And then Depot Redux, this wonderful community, or Redo, I never know how to pronounce it. This group came forward and they've worked so hard, and Diane, has been at the United Nations table negotiating all these years. So that said, the East Lawrence Neighborhood Association, of course, is totally in favor of this and encourages everybody to go down and see our beautiful station and take the train. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie. Other public comment?
Good evening, Mayor Farmer and Commissioners. My name is Carrie Maynard Moody, and the group I represent this evening is Depot Redux. Redux rhymes with deluxe. I might need some help getting out of this and getting into my production here, but let's see what I can. Oh, I'm well on here. And the cursor won't work. It's dead. Is it true? Oh, I see the cursor. This works. Okay.
The
All
cursor
right.
just doesn't show the pictures.
Oh, you don't. Okay. All right. Very good. All right. So, Redux means to bring back or to revive, and that's been the purpose of our group. When I took this on about 7 years ago, I had no idea it would be a 7-year-long project, or I don't think I would have taken it on. But I have been tenacious about it, and I owe much of that to interim city manager Diane Stoddard, because not only did she agree with all the commissioners that it was worth doing, her heart was really in it, and that made a huge difference. When the first grant was denied, we were very discouraged, but she wasn't, and she just knew from past experience that you have to go forward and apply again, and that's when she was successful. So we owe a lot to her. I would like to introduce some of the members of our board on Depot Redux, and they are on the left there, Jim Buddy, would you stand up? And next to him is Tom Harper, and then there is Richie Kennedy, and then there is Matt Larson, and there is Kevin Boatwright, former Al Hack was on our board, and Dennis Gomer, and we are missing Gary Knudsen, and Bill Getz is the other caretaker, and James Dunn is the other caretaker. So we started very small, and I went out and got a training on how to save a train station. Amtrak took me out on the train to Albuquerque. When I came back, I thought it would be pretty easy. And here we are today, 7 years later, talking about it still again. As Diane mentioned, it's an active train station, and this is what it would look like to a passenger who's waiting to board or alighting from the train station. Pretty prominent is the new neon signs, and those are exact duplicates of the originals. The originals are quietly packed in the back of the depot, and we're waiting to auction those off. And with the money, we're going to buy some seating for the station because the grant doesn't cover it. That's just a dream. And along with the new signage is these wonderful poles that are no longer rusty, but they are painted in Coulter blue. I could talk to you a lot about the history of train travel, but Coulter was a woman who decided that all the trains that were west of a certain, probably the Mississippi, deserved Western colors. So that's how Coulter blue got there, and we're going to have a lot more of that at the station when we start spending that money from the feds. Let's see here. So this is the route of the Southwest Chief, and it connects Chicago with Los Angeles, and we're right in the heart of it, and everybody hates that because it means that our trains are most inconvenient. But you start with the convenience for the biggest pool of passengers, and that's Los Angeles and Chicago. And so they leave it at convenient time. So by the time that train comes to Lawrence, it's most inconvenient. But guess what? That doesn't stop people from taking it. It's a busy place, and it's gotten busier and busier over the years. This is the view of our station as it would be seen from the passengers' viewpoint. Looking at Lawrence, there was a time when all those letters were dead and they didn't shine, and nobody knew where they were. That was very upsetting to me. So it's pretty exciting that everybody knows where they are now, and this has become quite the photo shoot. Everybody who wants a wedding or whatever, they come down to the station and they get their picture taken with this new signage. One of the surprises to us as an organization, which we really weren't prepared for, was the increase in ridership. I could spend a lot of time explaining how that happened, but I won't. I'd be happy to answer questions. But, it was a scary station. When I came on board with the project, the cabbies told me, that's the Stephen King station. That is a very scary place. That is where I can't get rid of my riders because they won't go in. And there was good reason for them not to go in. And it had become occupied by the vagrants in the neighborhood, and Amtrak was powerless to do anything about it because their office that controlled the caretakers was in St. Louis, so there was no supervision of the caretaker. So the caretaker would open it at midnight if it was locked and leave it open until the 6 o'clock train in the morning. And so when the train left at 12:15, the vagrants came in and had dinner and laid down their sleeping bags. And so by the time the morning passengers came, it didn't smell too good and it didn't look too good, and it was a pretty scary place. So the station was basically not used by passengers. So when Amtrak decided that I wasn't going to go away and that I was a trustworthy person and they gave me the keys to the station, I gave them to Marty Kennedy. Well, he happens to be a locksmith as well as many other things. And he agreed to meet the morning train. And so he locked the station and it stayed secure, and that's one of the reasons that the ridership has gone up. But it's been a hardship for us to keep the station clean and to keep it in good working condition, and to keep serving the many riders. The ridership doubled between the time I came on board and today. So we are an Amtrak-served community, and we have to decide what we're going to do about the station. There are 2 stations in Lawrence, and people get very confused. Sometimes they go to the visitor center to pick up their passengers, and then, of course, they miss the train and they miss their passengers. The signage that the city has put up has helped a lot, but we still have to decide what to do with this station. Maybe we will get more passengers and more trains, and this is the dream to bring back the Lone Star, which was a train that connected Kansas City and Oklahoma City. It was discontinued for funding reasons, of course, in the early 80s, I believe. So maybe it will come back. We can all hope for more trains more often. Maybe it could be a museum. Maybe it could be used as a gallery. Maybe it could be used as a visitor center. It's tough as a gallery because of the window walls. But this is a student from KU who made these drawings for us, showing how you could have some movable gallery space in it, facing north and south or east and west. The 2 offices that Diane mentioned, which could be used as offices, are the ticket agent's office, which is a smaller one. It could serve 1 person. It is behind that corrugated glass window wall there, or the ticket office itself, which is could probably hold 2 people. Both those offices have their own little wash stands, which we think is quite adorable, and they still work. And they have their own mirror and their own light. We love things like that. It's going to look better, and this is an opportunity for us to pass the baton to you guys. You know, we're older, and we're really tired, and we've done the lion's share of it. You've got the money now. It's a good deal, and Dennis Domer will tell you all about the historic significance of the building, I'm sure. But it really is not only a gateway to the city, but a gateway to the East Lawrence neighborhood, which has realized quite the renaissance and will continue to do so, I'm sure. It needs to be brought back. It needs to be revived, and it needs to be as good as it was back in 1956. I'm happy to stand for questions, but I know there are a lot of other people, too, that want to talk.
Questions for Carrie?
Just thank you, Carrie.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you for your leadership and hard work. I remember doing it 2 years ago, and
Yeah.
it's still going. So.
I hope you'll all come down and visit the station, too. I think all of you know it, except I'm not sure if you do know it, Commissioner.
I'll have them walk me down there when I take the train in a couple of weeks.
It'll be safe and clean, I promise
If you're
you.
relying on me for security, you're in trouble.
Thank you, Carrie. Other public comment?
Good evening. My name is Justine Burton, and I would just want to say that I was around when the train station was viable and running years ago. So I know that thanking Carrie and the rest of the committee here for putting this together is something near and dear to my heart. So, like I said, my auntie, she had a restaurant down there right across from the train station, and it was just kind of a place to go. It was part of the community, always a part of the community. And I rode a lot of trains, not Amtrak, but I rode a lot of trains out of there when I was a kid. So I am really thankful for everyone for doing that.
Thank you, Justine. Other public comment? Hi, Dennis.
Good evening, Commissioners. Dennis Brown, Lawrence Preservation Alliance President. Mayor, I think I can get this done in under 3 minutes tonight.
Excellent.
Yeah. I was centrally involved in saving the Union Pacific Depot, an effort that started some 30 years ago. And there was a point where a previous city commission made a decision to take on the holding costs with that facility. The alternative would have been a free grassy field. No one in the community today would doubt that that commission made the right decision. There are differences in these two projects, but if you proceed with this tonight, I have no doubt that 10 years out, people in Lawrence, future Lawrencians, will know that you made the right call. The city has been very smart in proceeding with this over the years. We have a historic structures report and construction documents with grant money accounting for a good percentage of those expenses. You're being the rehab project you're being asked to approve will be accomplished with the city bearing about 25% of the cost, and that money is already encumbered. This has been Diane Stoddard's baby from the very beginning as assistant city manager. Years and years of painstaking negotiations with mega companies. Just reading through the documents, I really can't comprehend how you stayed with it and negotiated for the city, as Diane, as you have. And I find it so fitting that you are sitting in the city manager's chair tonight when this action comes before this commission. And LPA urges you to vote yes on this action. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Other public comment?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, my name is Jim Buddy. I've always been a guy who liked to go down the railroad tracks from the time I was a kid, see what the activity were all about. When we moved to Lawrence, I started watching the trains, but over the years I saw the depot slipping away, getting in disrepair. 8 years ago, an arriving passenger, I'm just echoing some of the things that Carrie was saying, is, and we've talked to some of them, it was kind of an unlit, dingy neighborhood that some people like from Chicago, a neighborhood like that they wouldn't walk out into. The place was not the cleanest. Air conditioning, so forth, was not working. The homeless folks were in there. There were cases that I know of specifically that people waited outside in the rain and the cold weather because they couldn't go in. And thank goodness we've got a good place for homeless folks right now. But we had to consider the paid passengers as well. I think we got together just because we love the depot. A lot of people do, and that's how common people had this vision, and that's how Depot Redux was started. I'd like to tell you a little bit about some of the activities that were so rewarding. One of them is that we didn't have the caretakers that we have now to meet the trains, and as a matter of fact, we still volunteer to take their places when the need is there. But I enjoyed going down, meeting the train, helping the passengers, and talking with them. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about what was happening with them. One was a grandmother who I remember who took her grandchildren, put them on a train. They were going to Chicago. They were going to have breakfast on the train. They were going to go to all museums. And the grandmother was so proud because she remembered when she did that with her grandmother. Another one was a fellow with a visual impairment that worked at Independence Incorporated. He used it for transportation. He would get on it in Topeka and come on over here and get on here and go back to Topeka. there were elderly couples, not just one, but a number of them who came down and used that because it was cheap transportation and it would get them to a lot of places that would be difficult for them to get to, and they didn't have the money to do it. Albuquerque, to Dodge City, to Julesburg. And then I remember a lady who came in from Chicago, expecting to see something like Union Station, and it was a pretty big disappointment to her. And she came in for a wedding, and was going to stay at the hotel. So I showed her how to get up the hotel and told her it was safe and she would get there. So these are the kinds of people that are using that transportation. Plus the people who just prefer the riding of the train. As my wife and I both use Amtrak a lot, and I remember riding with a fellow from England, and he says, "Oh, Yankee," he said, "you don't understand." He said, "This is a sophisticated way to travel." And he was right, because there's no road rage on Amtrak. Well, Diane, people have praised you, and I want to add to the list, because I don't know how you worked through all the red tape, came up such good information, but we thank you. So what we have now, the scenes you see up there, we've got a new gateway to the city. People arriving here are going to have a whole new view of what is going on, and feel good about going to the city, and feel good about leaving it. The signage, the lights that we've acquired down there are just absolutely outstanding. And I know that there's a bit of a problem here if we don't move forward with this, that we might lose the money in a bit more time. So I'm encouraging you to please sign the documents and get on with this thing. It's not only that we want some relief, we believe in it and we think it's a good deal. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Other public comment?
Seems like no one's actually signing the board here. Of course, my name is Richie Kennedy, and in case it wasn't obvious, I am, well, some of you know, some of you might, I am related to Marty Kennedy, who was a former city commissioner and mayor. I guess my story is that because the depot is sort of influenced me in becoming what is known as a rail fan. I'm out there, obviously going out there, like watching trains, and of course I joined together with this with the Depot Redux group. I've kind of started taking on some of the tasks that Marty had done previously. They somehow managed to give me keys to the depot, and I greet number 4 on Saturday mornings. And I can also tell you that my own nephew is also becoming a little bit of a rail fan in training. Of course, he's got other things like Thomas and Chuggington that help influence him, but I intend on contributing to that. What I have here, just a couple of photos that I took recently. Oh, Diane's going to be nice to put them up on the elbow for me. Come up just a second. There we go. Of course, this is this photo was taken outside of the visitor center of a freight train, and this other one here was actually a passenger special, kind of sort of a charter train that I took just outside of Paola. And in addition to being a member of Depot Redux, I'm also a member of various model railroading clubs. And one of those clubs is having a train show this Saturday in Kansas City. And these photos, I'm going to be entering into one of their contests, and then after that's done, I'll probably give these to my nephew.
Thank you, Richie. A comment?
My name is Tom Harper. I'm a member of the Depot Redux Board and also founder of Lawrence Modern. I'm a mid-century architecture nut. I just love this stuff, and this building is a really, really special example of this type of architecture that I enjoy. So I'm proud to be involved with both groups, and I'm also very thankful for the many, many city commissioners that have continued to give Diane the nod to spend her time in working with a very complicated system, the railroad and, Burlington Northern and Amtrak, and plus your system, the city. So there's just so many people that have touched this building. City commissioners, attorneys from the city, people from East Lawrence, train nuts like Richie, people like me, people who dig riding the train. So it's been just a really interesting thing to be involved with. It's certainly a hub for the community, and certainly one of the main doors. If we think about coming in on Mass 2 downtown going north, that's sort of the front door. I don't know, this might be a side door. Still important, but it's a side door, and it just makes me so happy that people are attracted to it and give their time, energy, and money to it. So I think the 5 of you are really living the good life tonight, because you get to vote thumbs up. Go for it, Diane. Continue working with these entities and get this within the city fold. And, today I was thinking about, why? This is money, and you guys are always, and gals, prioritizing how to spend money, and it's tough. Just watching you up here, listening to you consider various ways of spending money with limited resources, I thought to myself, why is this worth it? Well, I don't know. It's a prime example of this type of architecture. It's a gateway to our community, and I feel like buildings kind of represent our history. So this is one of the few buildings in town that is a public space of this era that we can all walk into if we want to. And granted, the doors are locked a lot of the time right now, but with the city owning it, the doors will be open and invited. So I think it's an exciting time for you all to be in the seats that you're in, and I just think it's important to give credit to all those who have helped, whether it's sweeping, mopping, attending an event there. We've been kind of beating the drum a long time, and Carrie, I don't know if you want to continue on, but there will certainly be a Friends of the Depot organization, because we want to make sure the city does things right with the building, and we have Stan Hernley who will kind of be overseeing the renovation. So we're not going to go away, but we are tired, so we do want this to happen. So again, Diane, thanks so much. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Tom. Other comments?
Dennis Domer, also member of the Depot Redux Board. It's been an extraordinary historic preservation experience, because we don't usually find this much money for a building like this, particularly mid-century modern, which not everyone is like Tom Harper, who loves this kind of architecture, but this is a pristine example of mid-century architecture done by 2 KU graduates. It is eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places, and as soon as you accept the ownership of this building, that can go forward. Amtrak has named it one of the great American stations, and I think it's truly that. If you look at the 6 stations in Kansas, this is by far the best piece of architecture among those 6, and those other 5 aren't bad either. But you would expect the best architecture to come in Lawrence, and that's what's happened. And the East Lawrence neighborhood a revitalization plan of 2000 named the passenger station its #1 landmark to preserve. And they saw that in 2000, and we see it today in 2015. And I would say, once again, the people who have worked on this building, who have kept this going for 8 years since we began, have been fantastic. Carrie Maynard Moody has given great leadership, and Tom Harper has been the main custodian and has kept us going once a month, cleaning it. And Diane Stoddard has been right in there diplomatically bringing this to its final close. And so thank you very much. It's been a great experience, and I hope we don't have to do another one of these too soon, Carrie.
Thank you, Dennis. Other public comment? All right, we'll bring it back to the commission.
I'm really excited. As you mentioned, it's an ELNA goal for a very long time. You live in that neighborhood, you hear the trains. It's part of your neighborhood. I don't know how you would capture that historical quality of that neighborhood, but and I've been trying to get my boyfriend interested in the train. A little bit of a hard sell. But we're going to go on a train trip in 2 weeks. We're going to walk 2 blocks to the Amtrak station. That's living the good life right there. So thank you very much for all that you've done, and I'm glad to be sitting here. And that is true. Diane sitting in the city manager chair at this time is great too.
One question, if I could. Diane, it was brought up by the mayor, the indemnity section of this. Do you have any concerns here? Because I've read this several times.
Well, I would say that we had concerns about those issues. And in visiting with the city attorney, she feels comfortable with us proceeding. We have tried to negotiate changes in some of those sections related to liability, and there's just no movement there. So again, I would say that that's one of those things, if we want the transaction to occur, we're going to have to agree to.
Do we have similar language with the Union Pacific Depot?
That I do not know. That transaction happened so long before I came here, so I'm not sure of that. And although some of the same conditions were not present when that property was transferred to the city, as it is with this one. I think the big issue with the railroad and with Amtrak on these liability matters is that they want to have consistency across their agreements. So, if they give an inch here, they've got to give an inch everywhere, and they know they don't have to. So that's the challenge. And when you're working with a very large entity like that, that's very difficult. But again, we feel like we did make a lot of progress with them on some of the things that were major concerns of ours, like that environmental liability, that they were able to see our perspective from it, and we were able to come to a mutual agreement that I think will work well for us and work well for them.
Other comments?
I've got just a comment real quick, I guess. Tom, you stole my comments tonight. I did. Want to make sure that I think.
Maria can maybe add a few more comments on the legal aspects if you'd like.
Okay. Yeah.
Because it was brought up, I just wanted to point out on page 8 of the language that you're looking at, Mayor, on the lease contract, under subsection 14, it does state that we would indemnify BNSF from any negligence that might happen. You gave the example of a conductor making the train completely come off the tracks. And the only thing that I want to say about that is that there is a clause here that says the only liabilities with respect to which lessee's obligations to indemnify does not apply are liabilities, number one, to the extent proximately caused by the gross negligence or willful misconduct. And when I think of an example where a conductor takes the train off the tracks, for example, that might be an example of gross negligence if the conductor is under the influence of alcohol, for example, or completely disregards the standard of care. Normally, a negligence action means that there is a duty of care that somebody has to exercise, and that they've breached that duty and that they've caused damages because of it. Gross negligence is a more egregious standard where you've not even remotely met your duty of care, and an example of that would be, like I mentioned, the conductor in that case. So I just want to bring your attention to that clause, which does not require the city to indemnify for cases of gross negligence.
Well, I read that section, and I was wondering if that would help ease some of the concerns that I might have. Would that extend not only to personnel, that might work for BNSF, or would it also include equipment that they may have?
Well, it says it defines the indemnities above as really persons. So people who are affiliated with the company, it also includes employees, agents. So in that respect, I would say it would be persons.
Okay.
Can I ask you one more question?
Sure.
So let's say it's not gross misconduct. Let's say due to a fatal error of equipment, the train comes off the tracks, barrels into a group of people. According to this, if I'm understanding it right, we are liable for that.
If it is not gross negligence or willful misconduct on the part of those employees or somebody from the company, then there would possibly be some liability.
So are there other railways that go through there that are not Amtrak trains?
That I don't know.
I bet you Richie can
tell Richie.
There's usually in addition to the 2 Amtrak passenger trains, number 3 the westbound, number 4 the eastbound. There's the road switcher. It is currently based out of Topeka. It will obviously have to come through to serve DeSoto. There's also what they call a local train that originates out of Kansas City. Drops off cars in Topeka, then heads for Emporia, and then goes back to Kansas City via Ottawa. And then occasionally BNSF, if there's issues on the line through Ottawa, or if there's a lot of traffic, they might reroute some of their trains through Lawrence. Could be various anything. And I would suspect that under conditions of a derailment, a lot of that would probably be their issues, especially since if an oil train derails, we're all in BNSF will have a lot more problems than just issues around the depot.
Even an oil train derails, a lot of us are going to have a lot of issues. That's fair.
And they do occasionally run an oil. I have seen.
Yeah. Diane, make me feel better about this because I don't right now. When you say it's not an ideal thing for the city, and then I hear Maria say, if a train I don't want to derail this project by any means because so many people have worked so hard for it, but I don't feel good about this right now.
Well, I think that we're recommending proceeding with it. I think that if the city attorney were here, she would say that as well. She and I have worked for a long time on it. I'm saying to you that if we had the ability to write it, we would write it differently. But there comes a point sometimes in these negotiations that you are unable to negotiate further. And that's where we are on that issue. And we have tried for a number of years to be able to get movement on that, and we're not able to. So at some point, those are the trade-offs with a project like this. This project has a lot of great benefits, I think, from the community. So I think that from our perspective, we want to be able to get the station under our control and do these things. So that's why we would recommend moving forward with it, given that.
I know the city self-insures on a lot of situations. Where's the city at in terms of being insured against something like this? I mean, worst case scenario, catastrophic accident. Where is our liability at dollar-wise?
Well, and we may not have the right people in the room to be able to answer all those questions. I don't know if Brandon can, and with Tony not here, we may need to get those answers for you. But there are some special insurance requirements with these agreements that we would need to have in place to augment our insurance, which we would do.
Diane, from your description, other communities have agreements like this with the railroad.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't just be something we would be plowing fresh ground with this.
Right. And again, that's a lot of the reasons why these provisions are the way they are and the inflexibility of them.
That's a tough deal. I tell you, Richie, I can't tell you how much your enthusiasm means. It's, that's why you get into doing this. And unfortunately, sometimes when you sit up here, you don't get a whole lot of optimism coming from the microphone. So I want to thank you personally for reminding me why we get into this anyway. I think it's great what's been done. Just reading over that contract, that section 13 and 14, it's a little bit scary. It adds to the scariness when they make it in boldface and all caps locks. It adds to the scariness when your insurance agent's in the back of the room. I mean, everything about this has me thinking about liability, and then it's a tough deal.
Well, the action is to authorize the city manager to finalize the agreement. So you can authorize her to look into further things, and we can still go ahead and approve it as it is.
I just don't think there's going to be any further changes on the language. So we haven't received any movement on that.
Okay. So then I would entertain a motion to authorize Diane to finalize and execute the agreements with BNSF Railway and Amtrak, and authorize the mayor to execute the city-state agreement with the Kansas Department of Transportation.
So moved.
Second. Mayor, I do want to say one thing.
Oh, go for it. I'm sorry.
I think that, again, I want to thank so many of the former commissioners, that obviously are not here this evening. I know so many of them that had the opportunity to vote on this item throughout, the entire length of the, time that it was being put together. And I don't remember one negative vote on this item, not one. And I think that probably speaks volumes after things that we've been through over the last several weeks. But I think that there was a number of people who sat in these chairs that really believed in this project, and I think they believed in it probably because of the great number of volunteers, that spent so much time in trying to make sure that this project, was taken on. But they also believed in Diane and the work that she and others have done on our staff. I mean, I always remember former manager Corliss, he said something about you were the train engineer or something. He gave you that title, and that's really true. I mean, this project, we wouldn't be here tonight if it weren't for Diane and the work that she's done. So anyway, I want to say that I believe in the project. I believe that you've done everything that you can to make sure that this project is right for the city of Lawrence. I think that based on everything that I've seen, everything that I've read in this, we take the chance and let's do the project.
Okay.
Call the question, sir.
Okay. Motion made by Vice Mayor Soden, seconded by Commissioner Amix. Any other discussion? Or did you second it? Did I miss that one?
I think he's second.
Oh,
Stewart
seconded by
seconded.
Commissioner Boley. All right. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Congratulations. All right.
Thank you.
Great work, everybody.
But you're not staying?
Diane, did you feel the gorilla whip?
I got to go clean the depot.
Dan, I think that's how I met you. It was at one of these meetings a long time ago.
I'm sure that was the case.
All right. Next item on the agenda is to consider authorizing publication of the 2016 budget summary and establish August 4th, 2016 as the public hearing date. This establishes the maximum budget authority and property tax mill levy for the 2016 budget.
Good evening, Mayor and Commission. Diane and I were just saying we didn't really talk about what we were going to do for a presentation for you for the budget tonight, so here we go. We have a notice of the public hearing that's before you. What it does is sets the maximum expenditure level and the mill levy rate for the 2016 budget. That notice currently holds the mill levy rate flat and sets the maximum expenditure level. Let's see if I can pull it up here. Pardon? Oh, okay. It sets the maximum expenditure level at $206,720,019. Keep in mind that tonight's action authorizes staff to publish the notice for the budget hearing, which is scheduled for August 4th here at our regular meeting of the City Commission. At that hearing, you can reduce the expenditure amount or the mill levy rate. You just cannot go over the maximums that are listed here in this notice. Happy to answer questions. Otherwise, we can go through the different funds, or we can just take your direction.
Questions for Casey?
I've been talking to a lot of folks about the needs of the shelter and transitional housing. In light of the assignment to the Community Shelter Board that you all have provided me, and there's one item that I'd like to try to add to the budget this evening. If this is the time to add to the budget, Diane, Casey. I'm interested in an expenditure of $100,000 of essentially a one-time for this body in 2016 to the Lawrence Douglas County Housing Authority to try to provide some options for folks who may find themselves in the shelter so that we can decrease, stabilize the population in the community shelter and work on decreasing the budget if need be to a sustainable level there. I'd prefer to try to get this through the Douglas County Housing Authority because I believe that they have some capacity if they receive more funds in 2016. There will be some conversations with the county as well as talk to Craig about trying to come up with some money for between now and the end of 2015. So I just want to let you know that that's something I'm interested in, and I've had some communication with Diane. Maybe you can help me out here, Diane.
Well, as I understand it, Commissioner, you're interested in earmarking the $100,000 for that. So in order to do that, we're going to have to probably one of several things. Either that's where we dip into reserve, we look at the sales tax transfer out of the general fund and reducing that. There is also the housing trust fund that you all have talked about as potential sources to do that.
I'm not real inclined to try to tap the housing trust fund for this project. I think I'd rather go with the sales tax transfer, but I'll just throw that out there for y'all to.
And this money would be used how again?
Essentially for home voucher program. There's a program that the county housing authority has that they have some ability to get housing with private landlords through. It's like a Section 8, like a home program. So.
And are there people that are currently on waiting lists for that program?
Well, this would be a mirror program. It would not be the home program or the Section 8 program. So it would be targeted at folks, especially families who find themselves at the shelter and would be able to benefit from that. And essentially what I'm interested in is having that availability rather than just throwing the money over there without any program.
It's an incredible idea, and you know, Shannon basically articulated that she has houses that she could put people in, or landlords who have houses that we could put people in, and all she needs is money. And you know, this is with your work on the shelter board already, I know you've been busy and meeting with a lot of folks. This is right up the alley of what we could do to solve an immediate need for people, and I would be interested in figuring out how we can do something this year also.
You know, gentlemen, when I say this in all due respect. I believe your hearts are in, you know, obviously the right place. You know, there were so many good programs that I looked at our social service board, you know, look at consideration and things, and there are so many wants there that, you know, we can't imagine. I can't do this one. I mean, just to be upfront, I think that I mean, I could think of, you know, several other places that we could do this, but, you know, at this point here and commitments, I just don't think I can right now. Just put that out there. But, you know, like I said, I want you to understand I believe your heart.
I appreciate that, Mike. Really, what I'm trying to do is have an impact on the population of the shelter so that we can stabilize that financing, and we don't have them coming back next year asking for supplemental.
I understand.
Thank you. And I appreciate your point of view. Thank you.
You said this was a one-time expenditure?
Yeah.
So here's what, you know, and I know I talked about this last week, I don't know, 2 weeks ago. If we have a project that obviously deals with housing, I mean, pretty clearly, and we have an expense that happens to line up with a fund we've had for 10 years, I got to come back to why are we not spending that money? I mean, every time we come up with an idea that says this is going to cost $100,000 and it deals with housing, but let's not touch the fund that deals with housing and has $100,000 in it. Why? What are we saving that for, if not this, if not the homeless shelter, if not every other program that applies? I guess I don't understand what we're saving that money for if every good idea that deals with housing comes up somehow doesn't apply to that money.
Is that committee fully created, right? We just have to appoint members to it. So it's a new committee. They aren't even fully operational yet. So maybe if a year from now, after we created the committee and that money was still sitting there.
Or a year from now when that committee's created and comes up with a proposal, we put $100,000 in it.
Well, that's what we're waiting to get people appointed so they can come up with a plan. So I don't see that money is really sitting there collecting dust. It has been, for sure, for the last 10 years. But now we have a committee that we've created. It's going to be dedicated to using that money. That is their original funding source. So I'm happy with just leaving that money there.
Well,
we're about to put people on board.
Well, here's the question, Commissioner. I don't disagree. That money is there, and it was set up for housing. Okay. Here's the question: did we not? I don't want to say make a promise. Did we not make a commitment to the Justice Matters group that came before us about the use of that money? I mean, that was what I thought we had done. Okay, and are we not just waiting on that project to come back? I mean, I
Yeah.
really
That's
believe
my
that that's what
understanding.
we did.
Yeah. And I'm absolutely not trying to in any way negate that project or that committee. Or what I'm saying is if it's, and I don't mean this in any disrespect or any lightheartedness, but if it's that easy to make $100,000 appear for something, I guess I don't understand why us saying, okay, we're going to put the committee together, we're all in on this idea, and as soon as we are ready, we will make that $100,000 reappear for you.
I don't think it's easy to make $100,000 appear. What I'm doing is I'm kind of scrambling with my new assignment on the ex officio on the community shelter board, trying to figure out how we can stabilize the finances there. And I'm just getting started with that. Other folks may have been working with those guys for a long time. But, this is the last night I can ask for money for this. I'm going to ask for it.
Commissioner, I don't necessarily know that this is the last night you could ask for money for that. It's the last night where if you wanted us to increase the amount of resources, it's that last night. If it's move it from the transfer to the sales tax reserve fund or give it to the housing authority, that has no.
So
you could make that decision tomorrow.
Transfer, okay. In that case,
yeah. If you wanted to spend it out of existing fund balance,
yeah.
Likewise, if you wanted to just spend it, if it's a one-time expenditure, fund balance may be an appropriate source of that. Again, that decision doesn't have to happen tonight.
Well, that's fine.
It can happen later.
I appreciate you hearing me out. I was concerned that this was the last time I could.
But we'll get that on the agenda soon.
Okay, thank you.
So is there any interest in publishing a higher mill levy rate?
No.
Okay.
Mayor, my suggestion is you have led us through how many study sessions?
About 3.
Several. And along with our staff and along with the public, we have given directions that we did not want to see the mill levy increase. Our staff has brought that back. I think it is our time to publish where we are now based on the commitments and the feelings of the commission to date. It gives the public the opportunity for 2 weeks to go through what has been recommended, and then we'll have our public hearing on the 4th, of which at that time we'll do whatever final due diligence that we feel is necessary for the budget, and we're done for 2016.
Does anybody have any issues with that? Okay, I think we need to take public comment still. Have we done that?
No, we have not.
Okay, public comment on this issue. Okay. If no one has any final comments, then I would entertain a motion to authorize publication of the 2016 budget summary and establish August 4th, 2015 as the public hearing date.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded by Commissioners Amix and Boley. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Yay. Budget's done.
Congratulations.
For the most part.
was that
Stuart,
now?
we'll get that.
Okay.
I mean, I feel like that's a very worthwhile idea, and I think we need to move quickly at getting that on the agenda to not only stabilize their funding, but also help to eliminate that list, and frankly, to get at one of the goals that we have as a group. Okay, future agenda items.
Did they get that language put in there, the East 9?
Yes.
Yes. I've
Porter.
got a copy for you too.
Okay, thank you.
I was going to give it to you later.
Porter's been working on that, and that'll come back before you next week, the East 9th Project updated work plan. The city auditor is going to provide his report on financial indicators that he provides annually to the commission. The LMH item that's on here will likely not be ready for this particular agenda, so it may be moving. We do have the consultants, the ETC, that will be here to provide a report for you on that citizen survey, including those comparisons with other communities. And then you see later the items that we've talked about on August the 4th, the the budget public hearing with the second reading then the following Tuesday.
Okay.
I couldn't quite hear you. Can I ask, did you say this one will be before the commission?
Next week.
July 28th.
Sorry.
And 1231 Pennsylvania.
All right.
No, that's August 4th.
It's August 4th.
Sorry, Kate.
Okay. Commission items?
Yeah, I'd like to bring up what's happening in Topeka as a possible commission item in terms of what the city can do. You know, the three of us have been seated now for 104 days, and for the third time in 104 days, Topeka has dumped sewage our direction. And I'd like this to be addressed by our city.
Good idea.
I mean, it's 3 times in 104 days.
Yeah, I think that is a great idea because, I mean, you know, these things, I understand they happen, but...
they don't happen every 30 days.
That's it. Okay.
I guess I would suggest that we provide you with a staff report there, but a lot of the options really are in the environmental regulatory realm. That's the function of other agencies other than the city. But we can provide a report with some greater background on it for you.
I mean, could it just, at the bare minimum, could we send a letter on behalf of the city to these environmental regulatory agencies expressing our displeasure as a city? That, I mean, I'm not trying to throw Topeka under the bus here, but at some point we got to quit being on the receiving end.
I would recommend that we provide you with a report, and then you all can provide us additional direction.
Okay.
Is that what you were wanting, or?
There's a lot of things that I'm wanting, but just a start would be, you know, just some. I just think we need to acknowledge it as a city.
Okay.
We do have a quick commission item, if we could.
Yeah,
Mayor,
I just want to say one thing, and that is a staff report's kind of like a study. That's all I want to say. All right.
Could we use $100,000 out of a fund
We
for
can.
it?
Yeah. All in favor?
So moved.
It'll be a really nice report.
Go ahead.
You know, just comment, you know, the last couple of nights we've had a lot of great public comments, but we've had, you know, I don't know, it seemed like that they've kind of gone on for a while, and, you know, we've had a number of people that have really wanted to speak, and I don't know if we lost. I was noticing last night during the police discussion, had a lot of people leave through, you know, some of the comment section, and I just hope that, you know, that we're getting everybody, you know, anybody who wants to speak to the commission has that opportunity. So I don't know. I'm not sure the shot clock was the right idea, but who knows? Maybe it was. But just trying to get some discussion about, you know, time limit, you know, those kind of things.
Commission's thoughts about that?
I support that concept. I think we need to hear some from everybody who wants to speak, but
Right.
we don't need to hear everything.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between shutting down public opinion and being receptive of the fact that there's a lot of public opinion wanting to happen. I think it's in the best interest of not only the commission but city staff and everybody in the audience that we not be here till midnight every night, you know.
Well, I just think it would be good, you know, I just hated to see people like leaving last night, you know, that I know that came to be able to speak to those items, you know, with the police department stuff, and, you know, and I'm not blaming anybody, but, you know, I just kind of be respectful of, you know, the time, you know, that you're here. So there's a lot of great
tools
comments
that we can
on it.
use to do that. I think that's helpful.
I could give a workshop on speaking quickly.
Please don't.
It would last 4 minutes.
I used to have. I don't even know what I was tagged at one time. Do you remember that, KT? It was like 20 seconds or something.
Well, if it's your direction to bring the shot clock back and that's what you guys want to do, I'm totally fine with that.
KT, yes,
A very short public comment. Very good shout.
Sure.
Sure.
Thank you.
You have 12 seconds.
Okay.
No, you don't. No.
I just have to tell you what a relief it's been to not have the shot clock. I realize it's a mixed bag, but God, you don't have to get up here and go really fast, and then you know you're not getting it because you're rapid firing your message to the commissioners. So if you bring it back, could you give us 4 minutes? I mean, 3 minutes is rough.
I don't really like the idea of a clock necessarily. Frankly, a clock sitting right there because it is intimidating, and I've stood there and done, and it's just So maybe we just need to.
Perhaps you could introduce the public comment, saying, and you have encouraged people to be brief, but I think,
which has not helped.
Yeah, that's.
I don't want us. I don't want us to ring a bell, and I don't want us to. I don't want us to have the clock. Mayor, I guess, and I was the world's worst at this because I didn't use the gavel. I think that there's times when that's appropriate, to help move comment. And I think you did a good job of that this evening. So, but I just bring it up for discussion. So.
Thank you.
Thanks, KG.
That was about 12 seconds. It's perfect. Nice work.
I'm not sure KT really goes over 60 seconds a
No,
lot of time.
I don't know why she's asking for 4 minutes. She's never talked for 3, so.
It is weird.
I just bring it up for food for thought.
Well,
we want to make sure everybody has the opportunity to address it.
And Stuart, I appreciate your comments. I mean, that's why I've tried to say, please try to keep your comments brief. There's a lot of people here who want to speak tonight, but certainly runs into some particular issues of folks are passionate in this community and they have a lot of questions and have a lot of things they want to say, and we certainly don't want to squelch conversation, but as you said, I mean, there were a plethora of people who left last night.
I know. And the thing was, everybody that spoke had great items they brought up. I mean, and they really did. But if somebody, one or two people leave because they were here to speak and they just didn't have the time, we just didn't do it right. Something was wrong. So anyway, that's the only reason I bring it up.
Mayor, when Commissioner Amix used to be the mayor, he had a fantastic way of doing that. I can remember speaking, and you used to look up at me and you would wink and point. And there was no gavel, there was no disrespect, it was just a wink and a point, and I knew the message was clear. The problem is so much of that relies on people's willingness to be receptive to that, and I think we've seen that sometimes it can be difficult to get people to be receptive of those around them. And so I don't know that we need a shot clock on it. If we have just KT here and you want to speak on East 9th and there's no one else wanting to speak, I don't think there's any reason we have to sound an air horn at 3 minutes and tell you, no more, But if we have, like tonight with the train station, we had, 10 people wanting to speak. I think it's reasonable to employ that. I think, Stuart, you said it best when you said it's a tool. It's not a rule, it's a tool. We don't have to have the shot clock on every single topic. But when we do have a line out the door waiting to speak, I think it makes sense to use.
Well, let me, if it would be all right with you all, let me think about some creative ways. I really don't like the clock staring at the person standing at the desk. I think there's got to be, whether or not I just keep time and.
Yeah. You could say we'll give you about 5 minutes.
Absolutely, and then I could.
Orchestra right here.
And then we could employ we could do a wink, a nod, a gavel, and then an ice bucket right above that would just drop after 5.5 minutes. So you'd have 3 warnings, and then
you get the Amex wink.
That's right.
Farmer ice bucket.
That's
going to be your legacy.
Right. There's a legacy right there. So
I would take care of it.
That's right. Our very own Ice Bucket Challenge every Tuesday here at City Hall. So, all right.
I have another commissioner.
Yes.
Okay. We all received an email from Peter Lucky, who's the chair of the Lawrence Community Shelter Board. came in about 5:54 this afternoon, so he probably hadn't had a chance to look at it. In conversations with board members and Craig Weinog, we are interested in utilizing the services of the city auditor in looking at the finances of the shelter to try to come up with a sustainable budget, and I think Michael has a lot to offer with that. So since he works for us, I would like to ask you for permission to assign a project to him, or for us to assign a project to him to assist with the Lawrence Community Shelter financial situation.
Well, he'll be here. We can talk to him about it. He'll be here next week.
Okay.
I think it's a good idea. The sooner the better, so I'd be in favor of that. I think according to his contract, we need a motion for that. It has to be a commission decision, right? Or no?
I can't recall exactly. If there is time, Commissioner, it might be a good idea to visit with him since he will be here next week. But I believe his work plan, he's required to submit a work plan and have you all approve it, so that may be part of that step to get that authorization.
Do you need it done before next week?
I'd like to do it as soon as we can.
Okay.
And again, I'm not really exactly sure what's needed in the task. I'd like to work with him. I'd like for him to work with Craig. And
so is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion made and seconded to direct the city auditor to work with Commissioner Boley to work with the Lawrence Community Shelter on a sustainable funding plan.
In the county.
And the county.
On a project.
Okay. Commissioner Boley, second by Vice Mayor Soden. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Any other commission items?
I do keep forgetting to mention the Homeless Issues Committee Advisory Board. I'm not sure what they're called. I know that some people are concerned that they have their meetings now just on a quarterly basis and in the afternoon when people can't go. So I don't know who the liaison is with that committee or board.
There actually was some discussion about that with the board itself, and I'm trying to recall the details of that discussion, Scott.
Essentially, they determined to keep the meeting at the same time quarterly now, that if there was an issue of community interest, that they would need to call special meetings for a certain trip and meet at different times to accommodate different schedules, different people's schedules.
So they'll just continue to meet during the day on a quarterly basis.
Yeah, the discussion revolves around the participants' own schedule and the issues and topics themselves, and then the community input. So they had a fairly healthy discussion on it, as I understand it, and again agreed to accommodate that extra need as if a significant issue presented itself that was a homeless issue.
Well, I would certainly want to encourage any advisory board we had to have their meetings, when most of the population can go to them.
They're all a little bit different. Some of them meet during the day because that tends to be the context of when the people on the board can meet. They're all open meetings with the Kansas Open Meeting Act, of course. And all the decisions that come to the City Commission, of course, come to this board. So.
Well, it's the BTBC, they meet during the day, and I get that. It's a lot of employees of things, but I don't know. I guess I'm assuming that this one are volunteers. They aren't employees of businesses that work 8 to 5, and so they want to do this on the clock. Is that the case with this?
I think part of it might be that they're from organizations that have a business day and they're coming to represent that organization, so they're coming during their business hour. It's a board. It's a committee that used to meet monthly and had some pretty hefty issues over the years. And as we satisfied a number of the issues of the day at that point, the topics
kind of diminished, and so they quit meeting monthly and met quarterly and as issues arose. And so, again, the recent discussion was, as those significant issues arise, they will be mindful of that need to be able to accommodate the public schedule to come and speak to those issues. If you want us to convey a different direction to the board, we'll reopen the discussion with them.
Well, I think it's important. I haven't read any of their minutes, so I'm not sure what constitutes a significant issue for the Homeless Issues Advisory Board. I'm a little concerned about that statement itself, but I think that people have come forward and said that they need to have a better schedule, and perhaps maybe they could just make their next one in the evening to accommodate those people that already have come forward to say that. I think that would be a really good idea.
Would you like we can certainly provide you a memo that kind of discusses all the different angles of it, just so you know what their discussion has been.
That I suppose another staff memo might be good to all the commissioners. I suppose that would be good to see what they're working on. Another study for Matthew.
In a roundabout way, that's a great suggestion.
I think that would be good, but when people come up with this stuff, then I think advisory boards need to be responsive to that and just deciding that, well, this is convenient for us, so we're going to continue to do that. That's I understand it. I don't think they're bad people, but we want the democracy to flow, and for a lot of people that flows after 8 to 5 hours. So, which is why we're here until 9:40 at night. So I completely understand.
Okay. Any other commission items? Even if the answer is yes, I'm going to say no. All right, calendar.
I've got a calendar item.
Okay.
I need to add to the calendar. Hold on. Monday, July 27th, the Lawrence Arts Center is hosting the Free State Festival Public Feedback Session. They've asked me to be a part of that, so I'm going to be there. I don't know if any other commissioners are going to be, but it is Monday, July 27th from 6 to 7 p.m. in the Lawrence Arts Center's Middle Gallery.
What will you be doing?
Juggling and various things of that nature.
That sounds exciting.
It will be. No, we're going to be providing feedback and allowing the community to provide feedback for how they felt the Free State Festival went, how they felt about that. It's a really neat thing for the community to do. We got a lot of people out to it, so now it's our chance to kind of hear a little feedback on it. So.
There was also a replacement of deal from B-Cycle. A gentleman dropped that off with me and wanted to make sure that you all got it.
But also add to the calendar the ceremony that Melinda Toomey was talking about tonight, the breastfeeding ceremony. It's at the Lawrence Public Library at 10:30 on Saturday, August 1st.
The milk ceremony? The milk.
Did I say the milk ceremony?
No, you didn't. You just said the
ceremony.
I was saying that.
Okay.
The milk and cookies ceremony.
I can't think of a better representative for the City Commission than Mayor Farmer.
So I agree. All right. Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
I hung out there for a little bit. Motion made and seconded to adjourn. Amix and Herbert all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 5-0. Good night.